Chapter 26, Mutant Hunter. There is no need to elaborate on her appearance, with a high-nosed bridge, deep eyes, and flaming red lips, a typical image of a seductress. She walked closer in high heels, her crisp voice echoing in the room. When the 8 people saw this charming woman, they immediately knelt down like medieval knights saluting the queen, and said respectfully, "Welcome Lilith, our queen." Lilith ignored them at first, until she sat on the throne, and then waved to everyone to stand up. Everyone stood still, and Lilith first looked at Dracula. "You have no right to lead when I am not here, do you understand?" "Definitely, my queen. You are always the boss here." Dracula responded with a smile, and no one knew what was hidden behind that smile. Lilith faced everyone again. "I have heard all your opinions, but no matter how many, they are just suggestions. I am Lilith, the leader of the golf table, the queen of vampires. The Continental Hotel and its related forces are under my jurisdiction, and I have the final say." "Has the queen made a decision?" Winston asked. "When Superman started killing, I had foreseen it through magic and started to analyze it. I called you just to listen to your opinions. So what is the queen's decision?" Count Dracula asked. Dracula knew Lilith best. He knew that this queen was more belligerent than him. Superman would definitely be eliminated by her order. He was secretly happy in his heart. However, Lilith chose to compromise for the first time. "I don't intend to confront him head-on. I agree to his request, solve the problem of his friend Liu Hao, and pay another $50 million US. Dracula nodded in pretending to understand, and then asked, "What about those who were killed by him?" "The life and death of humans is irrelevant, and there is no need to consider it." "Does the queen think we can't deal with him?" Dracula asked. "We can fight, but it's not worth it." Lilith's face sank. "Because he is the most powerful individual we have seen in 1,000 years. The Continental Hotel has gone through hardships to get to where it is today. We can't gamble with this monster with a strong sense of threat. It's best to solve it with money and other means." Lilith looked around at everyone. "Only killing can make us eternal. Everything else is trivial. Maintaining killing in the world is the first priority." Finally, Lilith proposed a vote, and everyone exchanged glances and agreed. As for the belligerent Dracula, that was a subsequent story. Lilith then arranged for someone to clean up the blood in the hotel and used her connections to cover up the Superman incident, and the Continental Hotel returned to its former tranquility. The next day, a cool Maybach stopped in front of Liu Hao's residence. The car door opened, and a heroic woman with short hair and a tattoo on the left side of her neck carried 2 suitcases and glanced at the door. "That guy named Liu Hao, does he live in such a place?" the woman whispered to herself. Dracula glanced at the car, then retracted his gaze and told the woman in black, "Don't ask too much. Your task is to give the money to Liu Hao." She was extremely disdainful of Liu Hao, a guy. She was wanted but could do nothing, and would only let her friend Superman solve it. In the eyes of her, the judge, he was a waste. As a judge who could not directly intervene in the case of the Continental Hotel, she was unwilling to give money to this waste. But this was an order from the top, and she could only obey. "Remember, be nice, try to meet his needs, and we will reimburse him." After that, Dracula asked the driver to drive away. The judge said nothing, straightened his collar, walked forward, and rang the doorbell of Liu Hao's house. The door was not locked. Liu Hao's voice came from inside the house. The judge glanced sideways, turned the doorknob with his elbow, pushed the door open, and saw Liu Hao sitting on the sofa in the living room watching a movie. This was the first time the judge saw Liu Hao in person, a handsome man with a hint of Asian characteristics in his eyes, more attractive than the information. However, the movie Liu Hao was watching at the moment made the judge, who hated love between men and women, frown. Yes, he was watching a romantic action movie, and he was fascinated by it. Liu Hao turned his head to look at the judge, looking at her with a raised corner of his mouth, which made the judge feel uncomfortable all over, as if he had become a target locked by a hunter. "Mr. Liu Hao, I am the representative of the golf table of the Continental Hotel. I came here to apologize to you, and give you $50 million in compensation." The judge spoke first, with a cautious tone. "Turn around," Liu Hao suddenly said, which surprised the judge. "What did you say?" She looked at Liu Hao in confusion, unbelievable. Liu Hao repeated impatiently, "Just turn around in the same place." The confused judge did as he was told, although he was confused and embarrassed. Seeing Liu Hao smiling and nodding, she blushed slightly. "Mr. Liu Hao, I hope we can do it as soon as possible." Before she finished speaking, Liu Hao stood up and walked a few steps to her. The judge instinctively stepped back and bumped into the door. Liu Hao approached her and whispered, "I almost died at the hands of the assassins sent by your hotel. $50 million is far from enough to apologize." The judge tried to keep his distance and replied, "I can't decide the amount of compensation, but I can help you apply to your superiors." "No need." Liu Hao's hand gently slid across the judge's waist, and her slender figure gave him a strong feeling. $50 million, plus yourself, is just right. 2 hours later, the judge looked up at the ceiling with empty eyes until Liu Hao tapped her cheek to indicate that it was over, and she came back to her senses and picked up her clothes. Liu Hao sat there, like Yasuo in League of Legends, lit a cigarette, and glanced at the judge. What? Unsatisfied? Stay for dinner and continue? The judge didn't respond, and hurriedly put on her clothes, crumpled her tight clothes into a ball and stuffed them into her coat, and left without looking back. After leaving the house, the judge found that her phone was full of missed calls from the same person, so she called back. On the other end of the phone, Dracula asked, "Why did it take so long? What was the result?" Liu Hao accepted the apology, and I helped him deal with some things by the way. The judge replied, without mentioning her close contact with Liu Hao. Dracula just urged her to return as soon as possible, without asking any more questions. The judge clenched her fists, obviously not satisfied. She was in a trance for a moment, then hurriedly left Liu Hao's residence. Perhaps this experience would open a new chapter in her life. Liu Hao pinched out the cigarette but in her hand and said to herself, Boyd Hubulu, the military's mutant hunter. He already knew who offered a reward for him at the Continental Hotel, and his code of conduct was to avenge his grudges. Since you dare to attack me, you must pay the price for it. Inside the HYDRA base, a sci-fi movie-like scene was playing on the big screen. A Superman in a blue shirt with a capital S on his chest swept through the enemy. Countless bullets were fired at him, but all were deflected. Superman used the speed of sound flight and punches to crush the enemy. Chapter 27. The base has been taken over. In the picture, someone tried to escape, but Superman showed no mercy, demolished the wall and blocked the door, and punched through the enemy's flesh one by one. The senior executives present gasped. Although they had seen blood, this Superman's behavior was far from the image in the comics. Then, the picture showed Superman being attacked by Winston's 6 bombs. The HYDRA members definitely knew that this would not work on Superman. However, Superman did not continue to destroy the enemy with his fists, but began to release a freezing breath, freezing the entire hall and everyone into an ice sculpture. The screen was still, and the sound of typing came. The cold has eroded the monitoring, and subsequent information cannot be obtained. Pierce held his chin with both hands and was silent for a moment. One of the executives said, Look, this Superman's ability is exactly the same as in the comics. We can't mess with him. Another executive sneered. What comic Superman? We are no longer children. Do we still believe in such fictional things? In my opinion, this is just a mutant. It is better to believe it than not to believe it. A senior executive slammed the table and confronted the other party. Even if he is a mutant, he has extraordinary strength, speed, and defense, and can freeze everything with his breath. He is a true Omega-level mutant. The debate intensified, and other executives began to choose sides. Enough. Pierce stopped in a deep voice. Zora, what do you think? Dr. Zora is actually an AI who has uploaded his consciousness to the computer. His analysis ability is unmatched. Hearing this, Zora began to analyze, and complex data appeared on the big screen. Although everyone could not understand the specific data, they could capture keywords, such as strength and loss. Finally, the screen showed. The odds of winning are 50-50, but the cost is too high. After Dr. Zora finished his analysis, everyone wanted to continue arguing, but Pierce stopped them. Pierce stood up and made a decision. Since we have no intersection with this guy anymore, let's not provoke him anymore. But the leader. A senior executive wanted to speak, but was interrupted by Pierce's wave and announced the adjournment. Before leaving, Pierce added, Not only this Superman, but also Liu Hao in the New York Police Department, you are not allowed to provoke them, otherwise, you will bear the consequences, and HYDRA will not intervene. In a military base outside New York, General Boyd was immersed in the latest news of the United States, using it to gain insight into the dynamics of the world. Such a leisurely time was rare for him. A few days ago, an uninvited guest named Liu Hao suddenly attacked when they were about to capture the new mutant X-23 and wiped out all his elite troops. Now, Boyd not only lost his elite force, but also X-23, who had been chasing for many days, was protected by Liu Hao, who slapped him hard. Fortunately, he arranged in advance with Major Wells to include Liu Hao's name in the bounty order of the Continental Hotel, hoping that the professional killer could solve this trouble for him. At present, Liu Hao may have died on the street, but he was puzzled. Why was there no news report on the death of this New York star? It stands to reason that Liu Hao was famous and his death would inevitably cause an uproar. At the moment, Boyd's cell phone rang, showing that the caller was from the Continental Hotel. This reminded him that when Major Wells commissioned the Continental Hotel to find a killer, his phone number was left as a contact. In other words, once Liu Hao was dealt with, the Continental Hotel would notify him. Boyd answered the phone, and the other party spoke first. Is this General Boyd? This is the Continental Hotel's Bounty Affairs Department, regarding the bounty for Mr. Liu Hao that you issued half a month ago. Boyd was secretly happy and prepared to listen to the good news, but the other party said unexpectedly, Unfortunately, we failed. Boyd frowned and asked, What does failure mean? He was confused. Since the bounty had been taken over and the killer had not completed the task, Wouldn't it be enough to reissue it until someone completed it? How can the bounty offer fail? Boyd expected an explanation from the Continental Hotel, but the woman on the other end of the phone did not answer. Instead, she said, "We are deeply sorry for this bounty offer. Your bounty has been returned to your account. Please check. I hope you will reduce your cooperation with our Continental Hotel in the future to avoid any unpleasantness. Thank you for your understanding. Goodbye. Don't you think you should explain to me?" The phone was hung up before the voice fell. He was stunned and was about to summon Major Wells, who was handling the matter, to ask, but the door was suddenly knocked open. A group of soldiers in camouflage uniforms broke in with guns. Boyd raised his hands, but was quickly tied up by the soldiers. He struggled and asked, "Who are you?" "General Boyd Holbrook. You are arrested for suspected crimes endangering national security, and we are acting on orders." A soldier with a higher rank stepped forward and answered Boyd. "Arrest me?" Boyd's eyes widened, unable to accept the reality. "Let me go. You have no right to arrest me. Where is your boss? Let him out." The military leader shrugged and said, "Take him away." Boyd still wanted to resist, but in vain. The entire base had been taken over. A month later, the New York Police Department. In addition to being proud, Liu Nan was listening to his boss Arthur's report in the office that the military had been dealt with. He wanted them to pay the price, so he naturally went all out. After the Continental Hotel incident, Liu Hao, who learned the identity of the bounty holder, did not stop. He directly reported and used Arthur's power to bring the other party down. Arthur originally did not want Liu Hao to conflict with the military, fearing that the military would take the initiative to deal with Liu Hao. However, now Liu Hao has mastered the military's black material and was able to take the opportunity to catch them all in one fell swoop. Now about 1/3 have been captured, and they will all be taken down soon. Arthur said, "I didn't expect you to get their handle. There is a saying in China that it is better to take precautions before they happen. I will teach you one day." Liu Hao responded with a smile. At the moment, Liu Hao's right-hand man Qianlong came to the door, holding the phone in one hand, knocked on the door to attract Liu Hao's attention, and then handed it to him. "Brother Hao, someone is looking for you." Liu Hao narrowed his eyes slightly, said goodbye to Arthur on the phone, and took Qianlong's phone. Before he spoke, he caught a glimpse of the familiar number on the screen, which was one of his few remaining memories. Liu Hao's vigilant expression softened instantly, and he answered the phone. "My beautiful mother, why did you suddenly call me?" Qianlong heard the conversation between Liu Hao and the woman on the other end of the phone, and immediately understood why Liu Hao was so gentle. Who doesn't know that Liu Hao, the messenger of light in New York, dotes on his wife and mother? No matter how harsh and irritable he is to the prisoners, as long as these two women call, Liu Hao immediately turns into the most docile lamb. The mother on the other end of the phone heard Liu Hao's words, and her tone was equally gentle. "Is there anyone next to you? We need to talk privately." Hearing this, Liu Hao realized that Qianlong was present, and it was inconvenient to chat with his mother privately. After waving to Qianlong to leave, he said, "No one is here now." Chapter 28 Private Solution. "What's wrong, Mom? Are you in trouble in Washington? Someone is messing with the Ruby Club you manage?" Liu Hao asked with concern. "How is that possible? Your mom is such a big shot." On the other end of the phone line, Elena, his adopted mother, said in a teasing tone, "Without me, the army won't be suppressed so easily." Yes, thank you, Mom, first." Liu Hao also responded in a joking tone. "But you called me at this time. There must be something wrong?" Liu Hao spent a month trying to disintegrate the army, but just after he solved it, his adopted mother called. The coincidence of these two things made him know. Is it because of the army? Did they drag the matter to you in the cross? Threat or provocation? Liu Hao's eyes flashed with a stern light. When he mentioned this, his anger began to burn. Those who dared to touch his adopted mother would not want to live. It is said that misfortunes never come alone. This time they touched Liu Hao's bottom line. After hanging up the phone, Liu Hao planned to turn into a superhero to find the army and start a big purge. However, Elena said, "Who do you think I am? Just them? If they mess with me in the cross, my relatives will make them pay." The adoptive mother continued, "The army did not come directly to cause trouble. Not only did they not act arrogantly, but they came to me humbly and asked me to help you mediate. Make peace." Liu Hao regained his composure and asked in confusion, "Why would they ask you for peace? Have you ever had any intersection before?" Elena replied, "Yes, the Redstone Society has cooperated with the army many times before. In fact, our relationship was pretty good before. I even knew their General Boyd Holbrook." Elena explained to Liu Hao what happened. "We were already very familiar with each other, and I suppressed them for a long time because of your precious son, which made everyone embarrassed." After hearing this, Liu Hao understood the whole story, but he couldn't help but curse. Those guys didn't dare to confront me head-on, but they were good at using this method to solve problems. They were indeed smart. They knew that they couldn't defeat Liu Hao in a head-on conflict, so they used his relationship with his adoptive mother to impress him. Although Liu Hao has only been in this world for 3 years and has no blood relationship with Elena, Liu Hao has seen all her kindness to him. Gradually, Liu Hao treated Elena Stark as his biological mother and took great care of her. People have reverse scales, and if they are touched, they will be angry, and Elena is Liu Hao's reverse scale. However, Elena's strength also made Liu Hao not worry. After all, her last name is Stark, yes, the Stark family of Iron Man. And Liu Hao's adoptive mother Elena happens to be Howard Stark's sister, that is, Iron Man Tony's aunt. Now she is also the president of the Washington Cross, with high power and status, and few people in the United States dare to touch her. Mom knows your style and knows that you have your reasons for doing things, Elena said, but I think it's better to solve this matter privately so as not to make everyone hate you. You should understand the ways of the world. After listening to Elena's words, Liu Hao was silent for a few seconds, and then said to her gently, "Okay, you are my mother, and I have listened to you the most since I was a child. I am willing to destroy the world, let alone this little thing. But..." Liu Hao's tone changed and became firm. "I can let them go for your sake, but they did anger me before. Since they don't want to be retaliated by me, they must compensate me." "I knew you would say that." Elena on the other end of the phone agreed. "Okay, I know. I will let them give you appropriate compensation." Before Liu Hao was about to hang up the phone, Elena suddenly added, "By the way, phone, when are you free? Your cousin Tony wants to have dinner with you." Cousin? Tony Stark, the dandy who is addicted to alcohol, money, and women? Forget it, I don't like dealing with that kind of person. Liu Hao refused. He was telling the truth. Liu Hao was not like other time travelers. After traveling through time, he was thinking about how to meet the protagonist in the original world. Liu Hao, as the adopted son of Elena Stark, the aunt of Iron Man Tony Stark, thought that the future superhero was nothing special from the beginning. Not to mention that before becoming Iron Man, Tony was an obsessed and arrogant playboy, which could be said to be extremely annoying. Hearing Liu Hao's evaluation of her brother's son, Elena was a little embarrassed. After all, he is her nephew. She tried to restore Tony's image. Tony lost his parents when he was young, and his character is indeed flawed. But he is a top student at MIT after all. He has inherited my brother's brains. He has many advantages, but his emotional intelligence is a little low. Okay, Mom, I don't want to see him. And Tony is a scheming guy. He won't want to have dinner with me for no reason. Liu Hao tried to analyze. It may be that Stark Industries has developed new weapons and wants to sell them to our New York Police Department to test the waters first. Elena knew her adopted son's character very well, so she didn't say much and replied, "If you don't want to see him, just settle the military affairs." After the military affairs were settled, Liu Hao hung up his mother's phone and said to himself, "The military, you're smart. At least, Liu Hao will get compensation." Although his mother only said that she would try her best, Liu Hao knew that for the military, what was a compensation? It was a great favor for him to put aside the past. How could they fail because of this small request? So they would definitely agree to his request. Sure enough, the compensation was agreed, and not only agreed, but also exceeded Liu Hao's expectations. Just when Liu Hao went home early and prepared to take a hot bath before Wanda got off work, his eyes widened as soon as he opened the door. A woman with flowing dark brown hair, slender figure, and healthy dark skin was lying on his bed at this moment, which surprised him. This woman was the hardcore girl in the Real Steel series of movies that Liu Hao was familiar with. With just one punch, she could charm thousands of boys. Although Liu Hao couldn't remember her name, the image of the hot girl Rachel Taylor was still as clear as yesterday. At this moment, this beauty who had fascinated countless men was lying on Liu Hao's bed, and no one could resist it. But here comes the point. Where are your clothes? Sensing Liu Hao's gaze, she instinctively wanted to cover it, but then she remembered her mission, so she let go of her hands calmly and said calmly, "Look if you want. My name is Michelle Rogers. I was originally a high school student in the suburbs of Los Angeles. Now I am sent by the army to compensate you," Michelle said calmly. Chapter 29 Married People. It turned out that a few days ago, the army captured his alcoholic father and threatened Michelle to give him to Liu Hao as compensation. Liu Hao didn't have much affection for his father who had a weak sense of existence. Although Michelle hated that man, he was her father after all. After weighing the pros and cons, she agreed. During the story, Michelle did not mention the story of the mecha warrior. It seems that at this point in time, she has not met the male protagonist in the film, and the plot has not yet unfolded. Therefore, Liu Hao has now taken the lead and won the heroine. Naked Michelle looked up at Liu Hao. "Now I am yours." The army is a bunch of idiots. Liu Hao cursed in his heart. He didn't expect that they would understand the compensation he casually mentioned like this. Liu Hao does like beautiful women, that's right, but teasing should also be based on occasion. This is his home. He is already married. Sending a woman here makes both parties happy, but ignores his wife Scarlet, which Wanda, if she finds out that he is in the same room with another woman. At the moment, the sound of a car came from outside the door. Hearing the sound of the vehicle at this moment, it is clear that the person coming is Wanda. Sure enough, Wanda began to knock on the door. "Honey, are you there? I have something in my hand, and it is inconvenient to open the door." Can you come and open it? The owner is already outside the door. You can't stay any longer. Put on your clothes and leave. Liu Hao hurriedly picked up the clothes on the ground and handed them to Michelle. The girl was even more charming in a short skirt and shirt. Michelle was slightly startled. I can't leave. I must stay and serve you. Otherwise the army will not let my father go. Honey? Not here. Wanda's voice continued. Liu Hao anxiously persuaded Michelle. I will help you complete the task, but not now. Take the money and find a hotel nearby. I will find you later. Liu Hao took out the banknotes from his pocket and handed them to Michelle to help her escape through the window. Fortunately, Liu Hao lived on the first floor and she could leave easily. The sound of the key turning the door lock came from outside the door. Liu Hao quickly packed up and was about to go out, but Wanda opened the door in advance. Honey, aren't you at home? Why didn't you respond to me just now? Wanda asked puzzledly. Liu Hao scratched his head and explained. I was too tired today. I fell asleep as soon as I got home from get off work. I just heard your voice and opened the door before I could respond. Haha. But why is your head full of sweat? Wanda asked again. I was so tired that I fell asleep directly. I forgot to turn on the air conditioner, so it's very hot. Liu Hao perfunctorily said, it's really hot. I'll go take a shower first. Wanda squinted at Liu Hao, then shrugged and turned to do things. The next day, in a hotel, the phone on the bedside table rang, and Liu Hao fumbled to find the phone to answer it. Before he could speak, a voice came from the other end of the phone. Mr. Liu Hao, I guess you have received our compensation. I wonder if you were satisfied. Hearing this, Liu Hao lowered his head slightly, looked at the waiter in front of him, and answered with a smile on his face. Not bad. The military affairs came to an end, and the HYDRA organization did not harass Liu Hao again. With a beautiful wife at home and a beautiful woman outside, Liu Hao spent a few days of peace like this, accompanying Wanda on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, spending time with Michelle on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, and resting on Sundays. About half a month later, Liu Hao woke up from the bed and habitually looked at the woman next to him. It was Wanda. Fortunately, he didn't have to rush home. Wanda was immersed in a sweet dream, with a smile on her lips. Liu Hao kissed her on the forehead, got up, changed clothes, and went out. Life was colorful, work was smooth, and everything was fine in New York in the past half-month. This was also the norm after Liu Hao joined the police station. New York, once known as the city of crime, was governed by Liu Hao, and criminals were as docile as lambs, and the whole city was filled with simple folk customs. However, today, the New York Police Department suddenly became busy. This kind of situation that shocked the whole situation was not common. At least in Liu Hao's memory, it was last year. Liu Hao paused for a while, and saw that corpses were carried in one after another, with scars all over their bodies, broken limbs, broken legs, and even laparotomy. Murder? Liu Hao frowned. Everyone in New York knew that Liu Hao had issued a clear order to prohibit murders. Small fights were okay, robbery was tolerated, but murder was never allowed. The execution of the ban was also very simple. The arrested murderers would be sentenced heavily, and the punishment would be as heavy as possible. After being released from prison with a suspended death sentence, they would be visited by Liu Hao. This is in stark contrast to the behavior of Batman in the DC world next door, who put criminals in Arkham Asylum but did not execute them, and they escaped the next day. Such tough measures have made it so that there has never been a murder case in New York City under Liu Hao's jurisdiction. But today, someone who doesn't know how to live or die challenged the bottom line. Liu Hao stopped Qianlong and asked, "What's going on? Continuous gang conflicts? This is not an ordinary vicious incident." Qianlong reported to Liu Hao in detail. It's a fight between gangs, which is quite large in scale. It not only disrupts public order, but also causes a large number of casualties. Gang fight? Liu Hao narrowed his eyes and whispered, "Those guys used to get along well. What happened recently? Why are they making trouble again?" Although Liu Hao has reduced the crime rate to the lowest level, he acquiesces to the existence of gangs in New York. Because crime cannot be completely eradicated, the existence of gangs can make street thugs organized and disciplined, which is equivalent to setting boundaries for them. Once the gangs grow stronger, they can restrain their subordinates internally without Liu Hao's intervention. Liu Hao only needs to maintain a good relationship with the gang leaders and tolerate their illegal activities with a blind eye to reduce the crime rate in New York. Everything was smooth in the past, until today. A murder occurred, and it was a showdown between two gangs, not an ordinary fight between gangsters. It's like the subordinates are living in peace, but the management is starting to fight among themselves. Dealing with matters between gangs is the most difficult. Such cases cannot happen only once. If they are not properly resolved, there will be more victims. Brother Hao, do you want me to handle it? I am confident that I can solve it. Qianlong, the loyal younger brother, volunteered to Liu Hao, obviously eager to show his ability in front of Liu Hao. Liu Hao shook his head and said, "You can't handle it. I will investigate this case myself." Browsing the gang information in his hand, he found that several of the gangs were familiar to him. They belonged to Kingpin's gang. Kingpin, whose real name is Wilson Grant Fisk, is the largest gang leader in New York and even the United States, and is also the main enemy of superhero Daredevil. In addition to appearing in the Daredevil movie, he also appeared in the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse animation. Liu Hao had many confrontations with him after crossing. Since Liu Hao is the biggest boss of the legal forces in New York and Kingpin is the gangster boss, Kingpin gave Liu Hao face and even helped maintain the order of the gangsters. Chapter 30. Hot Temper. Since this was done by Jean Bing's men, it would be much simpler. Liu Hao narrowed his eyes and locked onto a surviving gang member, Jay. The gangster Jay had bad luck. He originally did not belong to any gang, but was just a small character who looked for rich people on the streets of New York. However, this method could not make a living. One day, before he started robbing, he was taught a lesson by a gang and said that he was not qualified to rob on the street. After that, Jay learned his lesson and joined a gang, thinking that he could live a carefree underworld life. Unfortunately, not long after joining the gang, his gang was attacked and inexplicably involved in a fight with other gangs. He was timid and did not dare to go to the front line. He survived until the end, and therefore saw a person in the other gang telling dirty jokes while killing people and dressed strangely. Jay escaped by pretending to be dead, complained that he was too unlucky, and decided to return to his old business. So in the early morning, he squatted on the street to look for targets again. That's you, a wealthy family of 3. Jay locked on the target. The family was on their way home from watching a movie. When they were about to pass through an alley, Jay, holding a knife, suddenly jumped out, interrupting their laughter. Jay waved the knife in his hand and said, "Obviously, it's a robbery." The father hurried to protect his wife and daughter. "It's okay, as long as you don't do anything to them. I'll give you as much money as you want, and all the money I have on me." Jay was ecstatic. He didn't expect to be so lucky today. He met a rich man. Now he can live freely for a few weeks. When he was about to collect the money, a voice suddenly sounded, "Find a corner and lie down. I only give you 2 minutes." Jay looked back and saw a strong man in leather clothes. He looked a bit Asian. He seemed to have seen him somewhere, but he couldn't remember where. It seems that he has watched too many superhero movies and came to do justice. Jay was naturally not afraid of Liu Hao's warning. He waved his dagger and said, "Boy, get out of here. Do you really think you are a superhero in the movie?" Liu Hao said coldly, 2 minutes have passed. The others have fallen. You are lucky. I need a lackey to lead the way. I will spare your life." Jay realized that this person was not easy to mess with. Just when he was about to teach him a lesson, the other party took out a gun directly. With a bang, Jay's hand holding the knife was shot through. Accurate shooting. Without even looking at it, Jay suddenly remembered the other party's identity, Liu Hao, a sharpshooter known as the Light of New York in the New York Police Department. Liu Hao let the family of 3 leave and slowly walked towards Jay. Jay knew what was going on and quickly lowered his head and lay down. Definitely, he could only hold his head with one hand. Liu Hao half squatted and looked at him and said coldly, "Take me to see your boss Jean Bing. Otherwise you don't want your other hand." This person known as the Light of New York has long been famous. Jay had no say. He could only nod and lead the way. He just needed to bandage the broken arm with a piece of clothing to stop the bleeding. Facing this guy, excessive blood loss is just a small problem. His life may be threatened at any time. Outside New York, in a dark room, a giant in a suit leaned on a custom leather sofa, and a trembling man sat opposite him. The mountain-like Kingpin gently stroked the cat in his hand with huge amounts of palm. He spoke calmly, his eyes never leaving the cat in his hand, and asked, "Tell me, Rex, do you respect me?" The man called Rex immediately trembled and replied, "Definitely. You are Jean Bing, the criminal overlord of the United States. My respect for you is like the water of the Yangtze River, flowing endlessly. Then why do you dare to touch my territory?" Jean Bing glanced at him, murderous, and Rex did not dare to look directly at him. "I was wrong. I was wrong. I was confused by evil thoughts. Please be magnanimous and give me another chance. I swear I will never do it again." Rex pounced on Jean Bing's thigh, which was as thick as a pillar and felt very hard. It is rumored that Jean Bing's burly is not due to obesity, but from the muscles all over his body. His strength is strong enough to knock down a Bengal tiger with one punch. Jean Bing put the cat on the table and waved to Rex, who was lying on the ground, motioning him to look up. Rex thought there was a turnaround and raised his head excitedly. However, Jean Bing approached his ear and said in a low voice, "No one can betray me. There is only one end of betraying me, and that is death." As soon as the voice fell, Jean Bing suddenly threw a punch. Huge amounts of fists hit Rex's abdomen like a hammer. How would it feel if a tiger could be knocked down with one punch? Rex was directly knocked 2 meters away, blood spitting out of his mouth and spilling all over the ground. His internal organs ruptured, and he only lasted for 2 seconds before his head tilted and he lost his life. "Alfred, dispose of the body," Kingpin ordered without looking back. However, the person who opened the door was not his men, but Liu Hao. Liu Hao glanced at the body on the ground and asked, "Boss Jean Bing, Why are you so angry so early in the morning? Jean Bing turned around. His serious expression instantly dissipated, looking at Liu Hao, and said in a low voice, Mr. Liu Hao, we haven't contacted each other for a long time. What do you want to talk to me about this time? You have to give me an explanation. Liu Hao didn't beat around the bush with Jean Bing, and said directly, your gang caused trouble in New York and many people died. Don't you think you should give me an explanation? In New York? Jean Bing paused. New York affairs are usually not directly managed by me. Although I am not in New York, I should have clearly prohibited the New York branch from causing trouble here. Liu Hao sat opposite him with his arms crossed. I don't care how you discipline your men. Someone here did die, and it was related to your people, so you have to solve this problem. This is our agreement, remember? Liu Hao said. I definitely remember our agreement. Jean Bing lit a cigar and nodded in reply. I will take care of it. From today on, there will be no more bloodshed in New York. You can rest assured. Seeing Jean Bing agree so readily, Liu Hao did not say anything more, nodded, and left here. Thinking that the matter had been resolved, Liu Hao returned to the police station and began to busy himself with his work. However, about a week later, someone died again, and it was a gang member again. Liu Hao was about to ask Jean Bing for accountability, but the other party sent his men first. When the men saw Liu Hao, they bowed respectfully and said, Mr. Liu Hao, our boss invites you to have a cup of tea. Liu Hao got on his men's luxury car and left New York again, heading for a Japanese bath in Texas, where Jean Bing was at the moment. Liu Hao took off his clothes and stepped into it. There was only Jean Bing in the huge bath. Liu Hao half squinted his eyes and walked towards Jean Bing. While shortening the distance between the two, he said in a deep voice, This is the second time I ask you to give an explanation, Jean Bing. Chapter 31 Nowhere to Escape. There is an old Chinese saying, things never happen more than 3 times. Do you want me to teach you a lesson? Liu Hao said. Kingpin, with his back to Liu Hao, slowly said, I have tried my best, but I can't solve this matter, because what happened in New York recently is not a simple gang fight. Kingpin's upper body emerged from the water, and he picked up a printed document from the side and handed it to Liu Hao. This matter involves a mutant. Liu Hao took the document and saw a familiar face. The red guy was smiling and making a heart in the photo, and who wouldn't be dizzy? Deadpool, the meanest and most talkative character in the Marvel Universe, is named Wade Wilson. He is one of the most violent characters in the X-Men, and everyone knows him in recent years. He was originally a Canadian mercenary. In order to treat cancer, he participated in the Weapon X experiment in the early stage. The experiment did not show obvious results in the early stage, and was regarded as a failure by Weapon X. Later, it was discovered that Deadpool had the ability to quickly self-heal. Even if the body is broken into pieces, it can be restored to its original state. However, due to the fire after the experiment, the self-healing ability and cancer cells repel each other, resulting in scars all over the body. Therefore, Deadpool, whose whole body including his face was burned, always wears a mask and tights. With the excessive growth of brain cells, he also becomes crazy. After possessing super abilities, he does not belong to any organization and becomes a mercenary who works for money. Because of his almost buggy super abilities, he has also become the most popular target. Kingpin explained word by word, this guy is now employed by the Russian mafia to help those Russians deal with me and want to weaken my power. So he plans to start with my power in New York. But he doesn't know that New York now belongs to you. Kingpin looked at Liu Hao and said, Deadpool is too strong. He can fight against my entire gang alone. I can't solve it, so I can only rely on you. By the way, let me solve him for you? Liu Hao stared at Kingpin coldly. Jean Bing sighed and said, then let's say I owe you a favor. As long as it's within my ability, I will agree to any request you make. Is that okay? Liu Hao shrugged and said, that's more like it. If you want to find him, my men have roughly determined his location. Jean Bing was about to tell Liu Hao Deadpool's location. No need. Liu Hao raised his hand to signal him to stop. I know where he likes to go the most. Jean Bing nodded and said no more. Wait. Liu Hao suddenly stopped, turned his face slightly, and said to Jean Bing in front of him without looking back, tell Jean Bing to come see me in person next time. Jean Bing in the pool was suddenly startled, staring at Liu Hao with wide eyes. When? Do you think I can't see that you are all stand-ins? Liu Hao's tone was cold. Liu Hao glanced at Jean Bing, and the invisible majesty overflowed like a torrent. The fake Jean Bing could only face his back and shuddered instantly. He was scared, knowing that once the man in front of him found out that he was deceived, he would only face death. The fake Jean Bing retreated subconsciously, but he knew that he had nowhere to escape. Fortunately, Liu Hao had no intention of killing him. He left his last words. I just said that China has a saying that there is no more than 3 times. Next time a substitute is sent, you will collect the body for Jean Bing. After that, Liu Hao left without looking back. After changing into his own clothes and getting into the luxury car that Kingpin's men had been waiting for a long time outside, the bodyguard respectfully asked, Mr. Liu Hao, where are you going now? Liu Hao held his head with his hands and answered, to the most famous striptease bar in New York. Colorful lights, exciting music, swaying hips, and flying banknotes constitute the picture of a striptease bar. The smell of hormones permeates this small space wantonly, and men and women seem to want to show their graceful figures through dancing. Those strippers who know how to grasp the psychology of men release their charm without reservation, attracting men holding banknotes in the audience to cheer for them and stuff the banknotes into their fabric-saving dance clothes. However, there was a guest who looked particularly strange, and even the experienced strippers couldn't help but be surprised. The man, wearing a red combat suit, with an unknown object hanging on his back and a grotesque mask on his face, danced more charmingly than the strippers. He has appeared for a week in a row. Little girl, don't be shy. Jump up, I have a lot of money here. Deadpool twisted his buttocks and waved the US dollars in his hand, looking frivolous. Although the stripper was surprised, no one would go against money. She narrowed her eyes, twisted her hips, and the money rolled in. There was nothing easier in the world. Suddenly, the stripper was hugged by Deadpool, who jumped onto the stage. This sudden move made her resist hurriedly. Everyone knows that there are rules for strippers. You can only look but not touch them. But this strange guest actually went on stage to hug her. The stripper became anxious and wanted to call security. At this time, Deadpool suddenly stretched out his finger in front of the mask and made a silent gesture. He looked at the stripper, and because of the mask, no one could see the meaning of his eyes. He only heard him say, "Since the moment I saw you, I was sure that you would be my lifelong partner. So don't be shy. Let's ignite the spark of love." "This, sir." The stripper seemed a little embarrassed. "Are you more passive?" "No problem. I like to take the initiative and dominate, whether it's on the floor or on the bed, right?" Deadpool smiled meanly. The stripper wanted to refuse, but she touched Deadpool's muscles hidden under his combat suit. Apart from anything else, although Deadpool was disfigured, he had a strong body, and wearing a mask added a bit of mystery that women liked. And he was mean, very mean. Perhaps it was just as the Chinese often said, men are not bad, women don't love them. This is also the reason why Deadpool has had intersections with almost all female characters in comics, and even formed a passionate CP with the friendly Spider-Man. The stripper in front of him, Deadpool has been targeting her for a week. Since he made trouble in New York, he has come to her every day. The atmosphere has been created. Deadpool just needs to take off the mask and have a passionate kiss with this sexy stripper. It seems that I came at the wrong time. At this time, a figure slowly walked in from the door of the bar. Deadpool turned his head and saw that it was Liu Hao. Deadpool collapsed, exaggeratedly expressing his helplessness, then patted the stripper's buttocks and said, "Baby, sorry, wait a moment." Liu Hao knew Deadpool's personality very well, so he crossed his arms and said, "I don't like her, I'm looking for you." "No way. You don't touch my baby, but you like me?" Chapter 32, At Your Service. 20 minutes later, Liu Hao counted the time in midair, leaned forward slightly, and landed at the speed of sound. He slowed down when he was about to touch the ice surface, and finally landed slowly. He raised the corner of his mouth and looked at Deadpool, who had maintained the same posture for more than 10 minutes. At this moment, Deadpool's body was trembling slightly. Through the mask, you can hear the sound of his teeth chattering, and occasionally you can faintly hear the swear words coming out of his mouth. Liu Hao crossed his arms and asked, "Mr. Deadpool, what do you think?" Feeling the climate gradually transition from extreme cold to hot summer. When he woke up, he found himself in a bar in New York. Sitting on the chair, it seemed as if he had just had a strange dream. The person sitting opposite him felt familiar to him. To his surprise, it was Liu Hao, an ordinary policeman in a bat suit. As we all know, Liu Hao wears a special pair of glasses when he transforms into Superman, which allows him to change his appearance, so Deadpool did not realize that Liu Hao was Superman. Despite this, Liu Hao once said the same thing to him. He was guilty. The two people's words were exactly the same, and Deadpool knew that there was an intersection between them without guessing. Has the Wound recovered? Have a drink? Liu Hao didn't look at Deadpool, leisurely picked up the glass, drank the beer, and pushed another glass to Deadpool's side. Deadpool narrowed his eyes, did not shy away, picked up the beer and drank it, and then complained. You actually know that kind of person." He also did not forget to tease. "Although I like tough guys, I don't like those who are so tough that they can't even stop bullets. You made me so miserable. I am an S-type. He is not me. Beating you has nothing to do with me. I am very disciplined." Liu Hao responded with a smile. "You must have asked him to beat me." Deadpool glared at Liu Hao. Liu Hao shrugged and replied, "You are too arrogant. You really should be taught a lesson." Deadpool wanted to refute, but he couldn't find a reason. He knew very well that he was indeed too presumptuous. Deadpool stopped dwelling on this question and asked, "I just recovered. You are inviting me to drink now. Aren't you afraid that I will run away?" He looked around, as if looking for a ghost, trying to find Superman. Liu Hao looked at him and smiled. "My super friend can cross the Pacific Ocean in 2 minutes. Where can you run to in 2 minutes? Outside New York City? Okay, I lose." Deadpool collapsed in the chair in despair. like a dried, salted fish. If I surrender, I surrender. Anyway, I can't die. Shooting is a waste of bullets. At most I will be fined, right? No fine. Liu Hao took a sip of wine, shook his head and said, I will lock you up. Hearing this, Deadpool jumped up and cursed. You are too much. You want to lock me up because you know I can't die. Deadpool is angry but helpless, asking, how long? Half a year? 1 year? 5 years? Liu Hao held up 2 fingers and answered, 20 years. 20 years? Deadpool slammed the table. Is your head filled with mercury? I'm only in my 30s, and if I lock up for 20 years, even if my body doesn't change, my heart will become old like an old man. Liu Hao shook his wineglass and explained, originally, 10 years would be enough for your crime, but you don't respect me, so add another 10 years. He looked at Deadpool, his mouth corners raised. Remind you, you haven't shown enough respect to me yet. Big brother. Deadpool, who has no bottom line, pounced on Liu Hao, hugged his thighs, and seemed to be about to cry. I can't stand the loneliness. I really can't stay for 20 years. Why don't you let me be a shooting target for a few months, and it will make you happy? Why not? Deadpool looked at Liu Hao pitifully. You must be locked up for 20 years. Liu Hao changed the subject. But if you do something for me occasionally, I can consider reducing your sentence. Doing things? Deadpool immediately perked up. No problem. I'm the best at it. Whether it's my mouth or anything else, I'll let you do whatever you want. Not that kind of thing. Liu Hao raised his middle finger to Deadpool. I want to use your special ability. Maybe it will come in handy sometimes. Deadpool wanted to bargain, but seeing Liu Hao's serious expression, he could only sigh and compromise. I understand. Your illogical existence is indeed both weird and difficult. So, Deadpool was handcuffed by Liu Hao and sent to the New York Police Department. During this period, Liu Hao put forward 2 conditions to Deadpool. One is that he is not allowed to leave the prison. This guy's ability should not be underestimated. It is easy for Mutant to escape from prison. The second is that Mutant's identity cannot be revealed and he must disguise himself as an ordinary person. However, as long as he keeps his mouth shut, no one can discover his super ability. Since then, there has been a Marvel protagonist in the prison, and Kingpin owes Liu Hao a favor, and the matter has come to an end. The life is comfortable and the family is happy. Wanda and Michaela, 2 beauties, play with Liu Hao in different ways every day, and the days are quite happy. At the SHILD base, director Nick Fury stood in front of the office window, looking at the SHILD agents through the French window. He held the printed information in his hand, one of which was the guy with a red hood and a hippie smile. 2 pieces of information, one is a brief introduction of Deadpool, and the other is a record of his past behavior, whether in the X-Men period or later as a mercenary. The perfect Black Widow Natasha Romanoff walked slowly, stood beside Nick Fury, and whispered, the matter has been done, but Liu Hao won't find out. Nick Fury said calmly, it doesn't matter even if he finds out. I have plenty of ways to deal with him. In short, Wade Wilson, we must take him away. Deadpool's self-healing ability is similar to Wolverine's, or even stronger. His fighting ability is also first class among X-Men, and it is really useful for S.H.I.E.L.D. Natasha Romanoff nodded in agreement. It's up to you to decide. She put her hands behind her back and continued, now, we have issued a transfer order to put Deadpool in the prison of the Washington headquarters, and we can take him out at any time. Take action tonight, the sooner the better, so as to avoid more trouble. Nick gave Natasha Romanoff an order. Natasha Romanoff nodded slightly, responded briefly, and quietly left the office. Inside the New York Police Department, Liu Hao is trying to draw a lottery. He hasn't touched this for a long time. Due to his unlucky physique, he always thinks that he may be able to draw something good if he waits a little longer. Chapter 33 Bringing Back Deadpool. However, the reality was not as he wished, and he drew another useless thing. This prize has never been drawn. Just like having a rare physique like super ability, Liu Hao was originally looking forward to getting something like Mjolnir. Liu Hao waved his hand to close the lottery system in his mind, and his eyes returned to the real world. At this moment, police officer Qianlong walked in and said to Liu Hao, Brother Hao, I just came back from prison, but Wade Wilson's imprisonment is a bit unexpected. Unexpected? Liu Hao asked, did he escape from prison? Deadpool has been imprisoned for more than a month. Liu Hao originally thought that even if Deadpool agreed to go to prison, he would definitely have trouble when he actually went in, or put forward some strange conditions. However, this was not the case. Deadpool was surprisingly well behaved, and Liu Hao did not receive any feedback on any problems, which made him a little suspicious. However, he did not visit Deadpool in prison for this reason, but sent his confidant Qianlong to check on Deadpool's condition. Now, he heard the question brought by Qianlong, no, Wade Wilson did not escape from prison, but he is not in this prison either. Qianlong shook his head. I went to the prison and found out that Wade Wilson had been transferred to the Washington General Bureau. The Washington General Bureau transferred the person I arrested? Why didn't you tell me? Liu Hao asked. Qianlong shook his head again. I don't know about this. You have to ask the people in the Washington General Bureau for details. Liu Hao nodded and motioned him to leave. In order to confirm whether Deadpool was really transferred to the Washington General Bureau, Liu Hao personally checked the surveillance video. In the picture, the visitor was indeed wearing the uniform of the Washington General Bureau. It couldn't be HYDRA, which would be too ostentatious. Could it be that it was really from the Washington General Bureau? Deadpool, this guy, is both a mercenary and a former member of the X-Men. His self-healing ability is extremely valuable for scientific research and will indeed be strictly scrutinized. But if Arthur thinks Deadpool needs special attention and takes him to the Washington General Bureau, according to their relationship, he should notify Liu Hao in advance. Guessing was useless. Liu Hao called Arthur directly and asked him to meet at a restaurant in Washington in 2 minutes. Arthur agreed without asking any more questions. Arriving at the restaurant, Liu Hao first exchanged pleasantries with the tall white man Arthur. Arthur, you should change your car. You are too slow. It's not all about the car. Arthur shrugged and replied, being late is my old problem. I may be slower after changing to a new car, just like the Flash in the comics is often late. That's not right. I suspect you were deliberately late for my appointment. Liu Hao laughed. Arthur smiled and admitted, you are right to think so. You always ask me to help this and that, which makes me a headache. Now I can't let you wait a little longer. Liu Hao shrugged. That makes sense. Okay, no need to be polite. You came to me not just to reminisce about the past. Arthur sat down and asked, tell me, is there anything that can't be said on the phone? Liu Hao said, I'm here to talk about Wade Wilson. He had anticipated Arthur's various reactions when he heard this name. However, Arthur showed a confused expression and asked, who is Wade Wilson? Wade Wilson, that's Deadpool. You really don't know this person? Liu Hao mentioned Deadpool's nickname. No. Arthur shook his head and asked, is he famous? I should know. He is a prisoner I arrested and put in jail. He was transferred to your place a few days ago. Liu Hao asked, didn't you order him to be transferred from the New York Police Department to the Washington headquarters? No, I didn't issue such an order, and I haven't heard of this person. Arthur answered readily. He added, if it was, I would have informed you long ago, so you wouldn't have come to me from the New York Police Department on purpose. It wasn't your order, but your men received a transfer order to transfer the prisoner. Liu Hao whispered, feeling that this scene was familiar. Only a transfer order can transfer people, but Arthur didn't issue one. That means someone forged the transfer order. An organization with the ability to forge a transfer order must be very powerful, either HYDRA or SHIELD. And HYDRA, whose entire base was destroyed by Liu Hao alone last time, has a deep fear of Superman in their hearts. This time, even if they were given 100 courage, Pierce would not dare to issue an order to provoke him to HYDRA members again. If it wasn't HYDRA, then there would only be SHIELD. The one who gave the order must be SHIELD director, that black-boiled egg, Nick Fury. You are so bold, black-boiled egg. Liu Hao crossed his hands, his eyes sharp. Since you dare to challenge me, you must be prepared to bear the consequences. Bringing Deadpool to the Washington headquarters is just the beginning. They will definitely come to the headquarters to take him away personally. Liu Hao doesn't even need to take the initiative to settle accounts with them. In Arthur's confused eyes, Liu Hao stood up and patted him on the shoulder. Come on, let me teach you what the Chinese proverb, luring someone into a trap means. SHIELD base. Nick Fury sat in his office, looking down at Black Widow downstairs, leading a group of SHIELD agents to bring back Deadpool. His eagle-like eyes stared at Deadpool, and his pressure was self-evident, trying to intimidate this guy. However, Deadpool, who was famous for his meanness, was not intimidated by Nick Fury, and did not even look at him. Instead, he looked at the figure of Black Widow Natasha Romanoff next to him with a mean smile, and kept trying to chat with her. Hey, red-haired beauty, you are really wasting your figure by being a dog, and SHIELD. Deadpool teased while swinging his body. Why don't you hang out with Wolf Brother? If you hang out with Wolf Brother, I'll pay you. Yes, this is a pun. He teased Black Widow Natasha Romanoff with that self-proclaimed charming voice. But Natasha Romanoff stared at him coldly. If you don't shut up, I'll cut your tongue off later. Black Widow's beauty should not be underestimated, but she is not an ordinary woman. She is a deadly machine that has undergone rigorous agent training since childhood. When she really releases her murderous aura, anyone will tremble involuntarily, as if the murderous aura pierces the heart like a substance. After all, that look is what Natasha Romanoff has earned from countless people who have fallen under her hands. The more people she kills, the more fierce her eyes become. On weekdays, her eyes are no different from those of ordinary people, but once she is ready to fight, the murderous aura will make her change like a monster. However, this is ineffective for Deadpool, who can't die at all and is fearless. Hearing Natasha Romanoff's threat, Deadpool, who was handcuffed, shrugged and replied, "Cut it off. Anyway, it won't be long before I grow it again. Haven't seen it before? Do you want to come into the room and let you see it?" Chapter 34. It's crazy. Black Widow clenched his fists, resisting the urge to tear this guy into pieces. The fearless Deadpool naturally would not shut up, but said more wantonly, "Not just the tongue. As long as you want. No matter which part of my body you cut off, I have no complaints, definitely, on the bed. Natasha Romanoff closed her eyes in annoyance, and when Deadpool was about to say something else, she kicked him at the joint where his thigh and calf were connected. Deadpool's scream of broken bones had not yet ended. Natasha Romanoff took out a circle of tape from somewhere and sealed his mouth. After doing all this, Natasha Romanoff clapped her hands, as if sweeping dust, and said, "Finally let this guy quiet down, have a chance to sew his mouth shut." If Black Widow knew that this idea came true in the movie Wolverine, I wonder what he would think. In short, for Natasha Romanoff, at least this guy can be quiet for a while now. The scene switched. Nick Fury stood in front of the huge French window in his office, watching Natasha Romanoff send Deadpool to the prison of S.H.I.E.L.D. Until he could no longer see them, he just turned his head and the door of the office was suddenly pushed open. Behind the door was Pierce with brown hair and black suit, former S.H.I.E.L.D. director and current deputy of S.H.I.E.L.D. Pierce's face was solemn, and Nick definitely understood the reason. He sat in the office chair and asked Pierce knowingly, "You don't look very good, Pierce." "Nick, what are you thinking about?" Pierce asked directly. "Why do you want to provoke Liu Hao of the New York Police Department? What's wrong with provoking Liu Hao? When did our SHIELD become so timid?" Nick asked back. But SHIELD did not rely on bellicosity and recklessness to get to where it is today. Pierce retorted, "This is not recklessness." Nick said expressionlessly, "We need Deadpool. His fighting power can bring a lot of benefits to S.H.I.E.L.D. I think it's worth a try. But the price is to anger that outright monster, Liu Hao." Pierce shook his head and said, "It's absolutely not worth it. I have my own trade-offs." Nick responded lightly, "We can't give up Deadpool. S.H.I.E.L.D. needs such dangerous people now." Nick was calm, but Pierce couldn't calm down, and said directly, "But can we afford to offend Liu Hao? Wasn't Clint's arrest last time enough to alert you? Why can't we afford to offend?" Nick leaned on the table with both hands and looked at Pierce. The last time Clint was arrested, it was because the transfer procedures were illegal, so Liu Hao sanctioned him by law. This time, we took Deadpool Wade Wilson away from him with legal procedures. It was a legal procedure approved by the White House. What can he do? In Nick's view, Liu Hao is just an ordinary policeman. At most, his business ability is a little stronger. What can he do if he jumps around occasionally? Can he turn the world upside down? Clint was arrested because of illegal means that time, so Liu Hao had a reason to punish him. Now, Liu Hao has no legal reason to take anyone away. Without legal intervention, Liu Hao can do nothing against SHIELD. Even if he is angry and wants to retaliate, his most significant combat ability is his shooting skills that never miss a shot. No matter how good he is, he can only fight 10 people one-on-one. SHIELD has so many agents, just a few level 7 agents can control this guy. Nick has already analyzed it thoroughly. "So, we have nothing to talk about?" Pierce asked. "That's right. I can compromise on other things, but I must insist on this matter." Nick answered decisively and firmly. Pierce looked indifferent. No emotional fluctuations could be seen, nodded, and turned around and left Nick's office without saying anything more. Nick watched Pierce leave and turned his head away. Pierce just returned to his office and immediately picked up his mobile phone and dialed a number. As soon as the call was connected, the other party said, "Leader, first." Obviously, the person on the other end of the phone is a member of HYDRA. Activate the highest alert state and fully infiltrate S.H.I.E.L.D. Pierce held the phone with a blank expression. Except for those who are indispensable for the mission, the rest of the troops can be sent as much as possible, and as much as possible can be infiltrated. Highest alert state? Are you sure, leader? Isn't this only activated at the end of the world? I am the leader, and I will activate it if I tell you to. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Pierce shouted sharply. The agent on the other end of the phone heard this and had to respond repeatedly. After hanging up the phone, Pierce rubbed his temples with a solemn expression. Has the end of the world come? Strictly speaking, this is not much different from the real end of the world, but earthquakes, tsunamis, and other natural disasters can still be escaped. But this time, there is nowhere to escape. Pierce knows that Nick Fury does not know Liu Hao very well. In Nick's eyes, Liu Hao is just a police officer with outstanding shooting skills. However, he overlooked the key point of Liu Hao's fighting power. That is Superman. If there is no Superman, Liu Hao may be able to deal with it, but at most he is just a mortal. But in Pierce's cognition, there is a person standing behind Liu Hao. That is an alien Superman who destroyed a HYDRA base. Nick Fury is crazy to provoke Liu Hao. I'm afraid something big is going to happen now, Pierce whispered. In the prison of S.H.I.E.L.D., Deadpool Wade Wilson, who was tied up with only a mouth due to ADHD, was still talking to the prisoner next to him. People are born by their mothers, and mutants are born by mutants' mothers. As long as you have a human heart, you are no longer a human, but a mutant. Do you understand? This scene is exactly the same as the scene of Tang Monk talking to the monster in A Chinese Odyssey Part 2. Cinderella, one of the movies of the Chinese superstar on the other side of the earth. The prisoner next to him banged his head against the wall, trying to make himself unconscious, and shouted for help. Someone come and save me. Don't lock me up with this foul-mouthed guy. Young people are always impetuous. Deadpool shook his head. You don't know what will happen next, otherwise you wouldn't quarrel over such a small matter. Deadpool definitely realized the seriousness of the matter. He was transferred from the prison where Liu Hao was, and was captured by an unknown organization. It was just a small matter for Liu Hao. After all, he just didn't want to surrender before. So that guy directly summoned Superman in the comics and taught him a lesson. It can be seen that Liu Hao is both powerful and domineering. How can he and his super friends swallow this breath when this unknown organization is so provocative? Thinking of Superman's ability, Deadpool was afraid. The mutant prisoner next to him was confused, but Deadpool ignored him and just muttered to himself, I'm afraid that big guy will misunderstand that I escaped. Deadpool didn't want to get involved in this dispute. He originally planned to give in. After all, he had seen Superman's power. Who could stand it? Chapter 35 Killing Machine. I just hope that when Liu Hao and Superman are in chaos, he won't be affected. This is the biggest wish of Deadpool, the master of slacking off. Nick Fury is still in the office, preparing for Deadpool to be trained and join SHILD, as well as other follow-up matters. At this time, Natasha Romanoff walked in with a phone in her hand. Natasha Romanoff didn't say anything, but handed the phone to Nick directly. Nick took the phone and just said hello. Nick Fury, you are really brave. Liu Hao's cold voice sounded on the other end of the phone. Mr. Liu Hao, I don't quite understand what you mean. Did I break the law? Don't wrongly accuse me, a law-abiding citizen. Nick Fury responded calmly. I will only give you one last chance. Give Deadpool back to me. Liu Hao's voice was already angry, and he issued an ultimatum. Release him? Why? Nick pretended to be pretentious. Then did our SHILD break the law this time? He implied that SHILD's actions this time were completely legal, and Liu Hao could not do anything to SHILD like he did to Hawkeye Clint last time. Unless Liu Hao has the ability to tamper with the order of Buckingham Palace, SHILD's actions are legal. Do you really think that as long as your actions are legal, I dare not do anything to you SHILD? On the other end of the phone, Liu Hao's voice was as low as a furious lion. Last chance, do you want to return the person or not? Are you sure you can bear my anger? As the current S.H.I.E.L.D. director, Nick Fury was not intimidated by these words, and replied expressionlessly, I will never let him go. Nick continued, if you plan to solve everything with personal grudges, and you can't even ask the police to help, what can you do alone? In response to Nick Fury, there was a beep after the phone was hung up. At this moment, even across the phone, Nick could feel the other party's anger. Liu Hao closed the phone coldly, put it in his left pocket, and then took out something from his right pocket, Superman glasses. Contrary to the original comics, when he took off his glasses, his temperament increased. At this moment, Liu Hao put on his glasses, and his momentum instantly changed, as if he was possessed by a god. It seemed that at this moment, the spotlight of the entire universe was focused on him. Let him become the strongest man in the DC universe, the god of the world, Superman. After being hung up by Liu Hao, Nick did not react at all, but just calmly put the phone on the table. Black Widow Natasha Romanoff tilted her head slightly and asked in confusion, That's it? Shouldn't we activate emergency defense to prevent Liu Hao? No need. Nick Fury waved his hand to refuse. Liu Hao is just a policeman in the New York Police Department, and he can't cause any trouble. Nick Fury said it easily, but Natasha Romanoff had an ominous premonition in her heart. Natasha Romanoff had read Liu Hao's information and knew that he was a policeman with superb shooting skills. But Liu Hao's deeds always made her feel vaguely that this man was far from being as simple as he seemed. This is an indescribable feeling, just like a lion in a zoo. Knowing that it is a domesticated beast, every time you stare at it, you will still be shocked by the wildness hidden deep in its blood. What if the domesticated lion hides a real wild lion? What if Liu Hao has always played the role of a weak person, but he is actually the real master? Although Natasha Romanoff had this guess, Nick obviously didn't care, so he said bluntly, If I say don't care, don't care. Nick rarely spoke to Natasha Romanoff in such a serious tone, so she had to stop talking about it. He sat on the chair and faced Natasha Romanoff. The most urgent thing is to invite Deadpool as soon as possible. SHILD urgently needs his power. When Deadpool was mentioned, Natasha Romanoff's mind appeared the image of that nonsense and playful face, and she couldn't help trembling and shuddering. After returning to normal, she said to Nick, Are you going to invite that mean guy with all your heart? No need to ask. I can guess the result. Natasha Romanoff crossed her arms and responded, After all, he seems to have a good relationship with Liu Hao now, and he may even go to prison voluntarily. Nick knew this very well. After all, Deadpool is a mutant with super self-healing ability. If he is not willing, it is really not easy to catch him. Although it is not clear what means Liu Hao used, it is certain that Liu Hao has reached some kind of agreement with Deadpool. They can lure Deadpool now, but they can't achieve Nick's goal. It will take some effort to convince Deadpool, but Nick is unwilling to wait. No matter what means he uses, He wants Deadpool to become a member of S.H.I.E.L.D. or become their killing tool. If inviting him to join fails, Nick Fury's eyes suddenly became cold, then used that technology to cleanse Deadpool. Cleansing means that the subject will lose the ability to think independently and only follow the orders of the superiors. Natasha Romanoff was shocked. She didn't expect that Nick Fury would use the humanitarian issue cleaning technology that SHIELD had banned in order to win over Deadpool. Although Deadpool has the self-healing ability, this technology has been used by the military to deal with Wolverine, who also has the self-healing ability, and the effect is obvious. After being cleaned, Wolverine still can't recall his past. Therefore, if Deadpool really doesn't want to join, SHIELD has the ability to cleanse him and transform him into a complete killing machine. In addition, it can also inject the genes of other mutants, insert his favorite double knives into his hands, and combine with Natasha Romanoff's request to keep his mouth shut. With this combination, Deadpool can perfectly replicate the killing machine form in the movie Wolverine 1, and it will be an out-and-out Walking Dead. Will you become a Walking Dead if you don't obey? Natasha Romanoff was stunned for a moment, and seemed to have a trace of sympathy, then regained her sharp eyes and nodded in response. I understand. Natasha Romanoff turned and left the office. And in Pierce's office at the SHIELD base. As the leader of HYDRA, Pierce was thinking about how to deal with the threat of Superman who seemed to have walked out of the comics. However, as the Chinese proverb says, what you fear will come to you. When Pierce was thinking, the phone on the table suddenly rang. He glanced at the number. It was an unfamiliar call, but the special phone number showed that this person had spoken to him before. Pierce half squinted his eyes, feeling ominous, but the phone kept ringing, and he had to answer it. Pierce calmed down and reached out to answer the phone. Before he could speak, Liu Hao on the other end of the phone spoke first. You should recognize my voice, HYDRA leader, Pierce. It's really Liu Hao. Liu Hao, did you call the wrong number? Pierce heard the other party's voice and gritted his teeth. We HYDRA didn't mess with you. Liu Hao on the phone heard Pierce's anger and laughed even more happily. No, you are both the leader of HYDRA, the former S.H.I.E.L.D. director, and the current deputy. Chapter 36, Biofield Depression. Isn't Nick Fury's business your business? Liu Hao asked back. I know you must have advised him not to mess with me. After all, the ground that was razed to the ground last time is still not cold, right? Liu Hao continued. At this point, his tone was full of anger. But your advice is ineffective. Nick Fury still challenges my bottom line. I'll give them a taste of color. Is there a problem? Pierce sighed. It seems that this war is inevitable. He tried to compromise with Liu Hao. How can I not be involved? You are not the kind of person who calls the enemy to inform them before the war. Pierce pointed out. What do you want by calling? You are quite smart. Liu Hao said. He made a request in an extremely arrogant tone. I can give you a chance to live, on the condition that you tell me the detailed information of all SHIELD bases. SHIELD has many bases in the United States, which Liu Hao knows, but the specific location, except for SHIELD agents, no one knows. So he locked his target on HYDRA leader Pierce. He had enough bargaining chips to make this guy confess. Pierce wanted to try to bargain again, but he thought of Superman behind Liu Hao, the man with the power to destroy the world. Liu Hao had been angered by Nick, the idiot. Now he provoked him again. Liu Hao asked Superman to take action in anger. The consequences were simply unimaginable. Have you decided? Liu Hao on the other end of the phone was like a ghost. I only have 10 seconds of patience left. You don't want to know what will happen to me when I lose my patience. The pressure was like a huge wave, hitting Pierce's soul hard. Liu Hao's threat was like a shadow, always shrouding him, leaving him nowhere to escape. 10, 9, 8. Liu Hao's voice counted down mercilessly. 7, 6, 5. Pierce sighed helplessly and stopped. On the other end of the phone, Liu Hao's mouth curled up a sneer. He had completely controlled Pierce's psychology, making it impossible for Pierce to refuse to trade with him. Pierce spoke up and revealed the locations of S.H.I.E.L.D. bases around the world. The population flow and prosperity of each place were different. Liu Hao recorded them one by one, and then asked, Where's Nick Fury? This sentence announced Liu Hao's intention. He wanted to settle accounts with Nick Fury directly and then destroy the base. However, Pierce had no way out. Since becoming the leader of HYDRA, Liu Hao has become the most difficult negotiating opponent in his life. Liu Hao's bargaining chips were too strong, and no one was willing to take the risk of confronting him head-on. Otherwise, only death would be waiting. Pierce could only reveal Nick Fury's whereabouts again. He is now at the S.H.I.E.L.D. base in Washington. Beep, beep, beep. After Pierce told where Nick Fury was, Liu Hao decisively hung up the phone. This was the first time that Pierce, the leader of HYDRA, had been treated like this. More importantly, he couldn't be angry, because the person who hung up the phone was someone he absolutely couldn't provoke. The situation is now clear. Knowing the location of the SHIELD base, the Superman behind Liu Hao can no longer sit idly by. Pierce looks outside the office and vaguely senses the calm before the storm. His intuition is correct. The scene switches to a SHIELD base. The guard outside the base finds something unusual through the telescope and immediately communicates with his companions via radio. There is a strange thing in the sky. Is the technology department testing new weapons? Something in the sky? I haven't heard of it. As far as I know, the technology department hasn't made any new weapons recently. The companion responded in confusion. Did you see it wrong? Is that a plane or a bird? The guard held the radio and looked up at the sky. Plane? Bird? No, that's... He watched the object get closer and closer. Close enough to see clearly, the red and blue Superman with a huge S embroidered on his chest, descending like a meteorite, allowing him to see the other person's face clearly. The sudden scene and sense of oppression made the guard forget to raise his gun, just widened his eyes and blurted out, Superman. Boom! Huge amounts of pressure fell from the sky, and dust flew. The companion who was talking to the guard only heard the harsh noise coming from the radio. The outermost guard stared at the radio in confusion, muttering to himself, This is the latest radio of the Ministry of Science and Technology. How can it break so easily? He looked up at the gate of the base and motioned several duty personnel to go over and check. This titanium alloy gate is sturdy and soundproof. No matter what happens outside, it cannot be heard inside the base. This is usually a good thing, which can isolate the inside and outside and prevent people inside the base from being disturbed. But at this moment, the disadvantages are revealed. The guards know nothing about the outside world, and even the surveillance did not capture the abnormality just now. Usually this is just a trivial matter. But now, the guards looked at each other, and no one dared to step forward. According to them, everyone felt a deep and inexplicable fear of this door. Although they knew that the SHILD base was one of the safest bases in the world, and the troops within 10 miles of the periphery could easily resist an elite force. But at this moment, fear permeated everyone's heart. However, this is an order, and they must overcome their fear and obey. At the firm request of the leader, several guards took guns and walked towards the titanium alloy gate step by step. There is a surveillance in front of the gate, covering a wide range of 2 kilometers. They only need to approach the gate to check the situation. However, standing in front of the indestructible door, his body suddenly trembled, which was an uncontrollable reaction. It was as if their bodies collectively warned them at this moment. That was the biofield oppression from a powerful creature. But the warning was too late. Outside the door, the air was instantly vibrated by the sonic boom generated by the high speed. The guards looked at each other in panic and wanted to escape, but the moment they turned around, boom! Huge amounts of impact instantly acted on the titanium alloy door. The incredible force caused the titanium alloy door to instantly break apart, and fragments flew everywhere. But this is not the most terrible thing. What really chilled people was that the tall figure in a red cloak and a red and blue tights suddenly appeared at the door. This damn is Superman? At the moment, the security captain who led the team finally understood the meaning of the last sentence of the guard outside. However, he was worse than his colleagues outside. Before he could use the radio to notify the inside, he was crushed into a pulp by the door panel smashed by Liu Hao. Definitely, Liu Hao, who turned into Superman, treated everyone fairly, and he wanted everyone present to pay the price. Liu Hao, who turned into a slaughter mode, accelerated with a sonic boom, accompanied by a heavy punch, and instantly turned into a powerful human cannon, defeating the members of SHILD one by one. Boom, boom, boom. The outermost layer of the base was a river of blood. At the Shield Center in Washington, Nick Fury was suddenly pierced by the red alert. Chapter 37: The End Can Only Be Death. Note: I originally just wanted to quietly create and tell a story that everyone is familiar with, but there are always people who keep questioning why the protagonist wants to be a policeman and why he wants to hide his identity. What's wrong? Can't you just enjoy crushing directly? Can't you just be an ordinary person to conquer your lover? Do you have to be a Superman and let people throw themselves into your arms? Do you understand the pleasure of conquering? I'll give you the pin. You try to write it? I'm almost confused by you. Besides, do you like to expose your identity to attract enemies, then kill everyone with cheats, and finally the plot collapses? Personally, I don't like the invincible flow, and the protagonist just yearns for a peaceful life and creates conditions for his own romance, that's all. Before he had time to find out the source of the alarm, Black Widow Natasha Romanoff had rushed into his office and reported urgently. One of our bases was completely destroyed. What did you say? Nick frowned when he heard this, and almost lost control. Every SHILD base is equipped with the world's top security system and armed forces. Who is it that attacked us? Natasha Romanoff heard this, and after a brief silence, she looked directly at Nick. It's not a force, and it can't even be called a team. It's a person. Nick pondered for a moment, combined with the information, and came up with an absurd guess. Is it him, Liu Hao? Black Widow Natasha Romanoff shook her head gently. However, her answer did not make Nick relieved, but deepened his confusion and shock. The one who attacked our base was Superman. Superman? Nick thought he had heard it wrong and asked Natasha Romanoff again. You mean the Superman in those children's superhero comics? Natasha Romanoff looked directly at Nick, indicating that she would never joke at such a critical moment. Yes, it's the Superman in the children's comics. As she said that, she handed Nick a tablet. If you think I'm talking nonsense or hallucinating, then take a look at the surveillance video in the computer. Nick took the computer and played the video. The scene on the screen made him unbelievable. First, Superman Liu Hao outside the base slaughtered people around him at lightning speed. Then, with a sonic boom, he smashed the titanium alloy door that was said to be the strongest. Then, he came to the inner layer of the base and started killing people. All this took no more than 10 minutes. In the last few seconds of the surveillance, Liu Hao looked at the camera and smiled arrogantly. Then, the screen showed him smashing the second giant door with super speed and critical hit. The surveillance stopped abruptly, but at this moment, the killer who was no different from Superman was still wreaking havoc. Liu Hao. The name came out of Nick's mouth. He just offended Liu Hao, and then, a monster wearing a red cape and tights rushed straight to the SHILD base. Connecting these two things, even a fool knows that this Superman must be related to Liu Hao. Nick knows something about super abilities such as X-Men, and has seen many beta-level and even omega-level mutants. But now, a fictional character that should only exist in comics has appeared, and he is the superhero with the most super ability, Superman. What Nick didn't expect was that Liu Hao, who was unknown in the New York Police Department, actually knew such a person, and their relationship was so close that the other party was willing to stand up for him. At the moment, he really realized that Liu Hao was not a good person. After 2 minutes of contemplation, Nick reached out and said to Natasha Romanoff, "Mobile phone, call Liu Hao for me." But Natasha Romanoff shook her head and looked at Nick helplessly. "I have tried, and now, I can't get through to Liu Hao's phone at all." "What did you say?" At this moment, Nick was in a real dilemma, because Liu Hao had cut off his retreat and didn't even leave him a chance to reconcile. It seemed to tell Nick clearly that once he angered Liu Hao, he would pay a bloody price. The screen switched, and Liu Hao kicked the last agent deep in the SHILD base in another area to end his life. Looking around at the devastation and ruins, he muttered to himself, "The base in Florida, solved." He recalled what Pierce told him about SHILD bases across the United States, and then said to himself, "Next." After that, Liu Hao stomped his feet and instantly rose into the air at the speed of sound. The air produced a sonic boom, and the surrounding debris was blown away by the airflow. Liu Hao soared in the air, flying to the next SHILD base with a clear goal. After learning that Liu Hao could not be contacted, Nick Fury immediately conveyed the order of full alert to other bases and activated the highest level of defense. Therefore, when Liu Hao arrived at the new base and prepared to kill, the outside was full of fully armed agents who were waiting with guns. As soon as Liu Hao appeared, a rocket was immediately fired, igniting his entire body like a firework. When everyone saw this scene, they secretly rejoiced. They thought that this guy was good at avoiding attacks, but the first rocket hit him. This rocket launcher is the most powerful weapon upgraded by the SHIELD Technology Department. It can easily destroy tanks. However, they underestimated the defense of the guy floating in the air and surrounded by flames, which is far beyond the reach of tanks. Soon, an agent noticed something was wrong. Why hasn't he fallen down after being hit? Then, a sharp-eyed agent noticed that the figure in the flames did not disappear, but was approaching them. That guy is still alive. The commander of the intelligence department shouted in shock, "Fire! All fire! Use any weapon and pour it madly at the alien in the sky." Outside the SHIELD base, as the order was issued, artillery fire and smoke filled the sky in an instant. The agents did not dare to slack off, and they all aimed their firepower at the night sky, pouring out like a storm. In the dark night, the roar and flash of artillery fire illuminated the sky, forming a spectacular barrage. However, no matter how dense the ammunition was, how deafening the sound was, or how powerful it was, once it touched Liu Hao, it all turned into nothing. It was as if they were not firing special guns and ammunition, but children's toy guns sold by street vendors. The key point is that even if their attacks were ineffective, Liu Hao would not stop flying. Faced with such an overwhelming force, anyone would understand that being approached by such a guy would only end in death. But they miscalculated, underestimated Liu Hao's ability, and misunderstood his character. Although Liu Hao was unscathed in the gunfire, he was still unhappy with the mist around him. So, everyone saw Liu Hao flying in the air, reaching up to push up the sunglasses on his nose, so that the lenses were out of sight. At the moment when he took off his glasses, 2 beams of crimson light lit up in the night sky, right in Liu Hao's eyes. Chapter 38. Charred Remains. Everyone in the world knows the name of Superman, and everyone knows his famous super ability, thermal vision. However, knowing it cannot change reality. Sizzle. Like Cyclops and X-Men, Liu Hao removed his camouflaged sunglasses after taking off the glasses that suppress thermal vision. Then, he stared fiercely. In an instant, 2 blazing rays swooped down from the sky, pointing directly at the agents, sweeping with his sight. The scene of Liu Hao attacking the agents was extremely shocking. From a distance, it was like the flames spewed by the dragon in the Japanese RPG game. Liu Hao, who was attacked by the flames, fought back with flames. The thermal vision bursting out of Liu Hao's eyes was like a precise laser scalpel, cutting the bodies of the agents into pieces and then turning them into ashes. On the ground, there was only endless wailing. They wanted to escape, but for Superman Liu Hao, who used thermal vision in the air, destroying them was as easy as erasing pencil marks with an eraser. The only difference was that erasing words required physical action, while destroying these people only required a thought. As a result, the periphery of the SHILD base turned into a sea of blood, with debris scorched by the heat vision scattered in the sea of blood. After stopping using the heat vision, Liu Hao put on his glasses again and landed on the ground as if nothing had happened. Then, he came to the door, held the door with both hands like opening a gift, and pulled it left and right, and the so-called titanium alloy door was torn in half. Pushing open the titanium alloy door, the oncoming artillery fire was still fierce, facing this scene. Liu Hao took a deep breath, then exhaled, using the freezing breath to freeze all the weapons and agents in the door. When everything was frozen, Liu Hao used a combination of speed and boxing to smash all objects one by one. Objects in a frozen state are easier to break. Liu Hao, who turned into Superman, only needs to increase his speed and create a sonic boom to shatter the ice. Break the titanium alloy door again and continue fighting. No matter how the SHILD agent struggles, it can't hurt Liu Hao in the Superman state. The entire base was breached in no more than 10 minutes. Then, he stood on the ruins, looked up at the sky, and said, "Next." After that, he stomped his feet and took off, sprinting with a sonic boom. Liu Hao's movements were smooth and natural, as if he was playing a retro RPG game, conquering S.H.I.E.L.D.'s bases one by one. All of this was seen by other forces that had some intersection with Liu Hao, except S.H.I.E.L.D. First, the military that was hunting down the X-Men. The footage of Superman Liu Hao destroying S.H.I.E.L.D.'s bases across the United States was transmitted to them by hack surveillance. At this moment, Superman's actions were played on the big screen like a miracle, and the senior executives who watched became more and more panicked and scared. They even put themselves in his shoes and imagined that if the military faced Superman, what would be the chance of winning? The answer was hard to say. Boyd watched all this silently, thinking to himself that, as expected, he was right to order his men to closely monitor Liu Hao's actions. Otherwise, he would never discover this monster that had been lurking around Liu Hao for a long time. About the military's access to Liu Hao's video. Although General Boyd sent Michaela as compensation for Liu Hao after his release, he still ordered his men to keep a close eye on Liu Hao and his companions. And today, he discovered this shocking existence, a fictional character that only exists in superhero comics, Superman. For those who have devoted their lives to studying and hunting down X-Men, this is a major technological leap. However, on second thought, they gave up the idea of experimenting on Superman's body. After all, this guy is acquainted with Liu Hao, a powerful guy, and he has a perverted physique that can destroy a city with a slight cough. Not to mention catching him for experiments, it is a blessing to be able to stay away from him. General, do we still want to watch? Major Wilson of the military couldn't help asking. Watch. Boyd answered concisely, the stronger the strength, the more we need to watch. Only in this way can we fully analyze this monster and avoid future conflicts. Boyd always has a hunch that they will eventually fight this monster. Based on the current strength comparison between the two sides, the probability of their military winning is no more than 50%, so they still need a lot of analysis and judgment. In faraway Europe, the Noble Blood Clan also received the picture of Liu Hao conquering the SHIELD base. These vampires who have experienced thousands of years of vicissitudes have never thought that one day they will be afraid of one person. The elders of Blood Clan sat around the long table. Except for Lilith, the king of Blood Clan, and Dracula, who was in second place, the rest of the elders were secretly happy. A straightforward elder said bluntly, "It's great that we didn't have a serious conflict with the guy called Superman. Otherwise, my old bones." Dracula cast a sharp look, and the man immediately realized the atmosphere and chose to remain silent. "Encourage the enemy's arrogance and weaken your own majesty," Dracula sneered. "After living for so long, all you have learned is to survive. Trash is always trash." The scolded elder wanted to refute, but couldn't find the right words to refute. He could only suppress his anger, and his body trembled. Enough. Lilith raised her hand to stop the dispute. Watching a video and fighting internally, if Superman really fights with us, won't the ending be one-sided? Dracula shrugged and turned his head and stopped talking. The other elders turned to Lilith and asked, "Queen, facing this situation, are we really not considering countermeasures to deal with this Superman?" The elder glanced at Dracula and continued, "Although he hasn't troubled us yet, who can predict what will happen in the future? What if he becomes our enemy? So I asked you to prepare for battle a long time ago. Dracula suggested, we should strengthen the power of our blood clan and convert more vampires. Lilith pondered for a moment. Finally, she made a decision. We can prepare for battle, but we can't be too ostentatious. We don't know much about Superman yet, and need more observation. Lilith shared the information obtained from the surveillance. Extraordinary strength, super speed, extraordinary defense, and super abilities of heat vision and freezing breath. According to the video, his heat vision can cut flesh, and his freezing breath can easily drop to sub-zero temperatures. After the analysis, Lilith warned, if we are not well prepared and cannot resist the strength he has shown, don't even think about fighting Superman. After Lilith finished speaking, the elders nodded in agreement. They did need more information about Liu Hao to assess his strength. The blood clans on the golf course planned to act accordingly. The camera switched back to the SHIELD base in Washington. According to the report of Black Widow Natasha Romanoff, the Superman summoned by Liu Hao has destroyed 4 bases that cost them $100 million to maintain every year in a short period of time. Chapter 39, Unpredictable. But this is not the key point. The key point is that according to this trend, the bases will be destroyed one by Liu Hao, and only the one in Washington will be left. This is Liu Hao's plan. He asked Pierce about Nick's location, not intending to attack Nick's location directly. Instead, he destroyed other bases one by one, leaving the base where Nick was until the end, so that his inner fear would be infinitely magnified. This is like a lion locking its prey. The lion wants to make the prey tremble with fear, and will not eat it first, but let the prey watch its companions being swallowed, unable to resist. Let the prey witness the death of their loved ones. As the number of deaths increases, the fear in the prey's heart continues to intensify, just like the lion kills the prey countless times, which is far more satisfying than swallowing it in one bite. This is a kind of fear that makes people feel that death is approaching step by step. The most important thing is that he himself cannot stop the anger of Liu Hao and Superman. Finally, Nick Fury closed his eyes, as if he had made a decision in his heart, picked up the phone, and dialed Pierce's number. The call was connected, and Pierce's deep voice sounded, I warned you, but you just didn't listen. It's no use saying these now, Pierce. I need your help. I need you to use your connections at the top. Nick pleaded. Nick knew that no matter what he said, he couldn't calm Pierce's anger, so he could only promise. I will take full responsibility, and I will take responsibility for everything. Hearing this, Pierce on the other end of the phone fell silent. Nick knew that Pierce had the ability to solve this problem. This was the first time he asked Pierce for help so humbly, and the possibility that the other party agreed to help was very high. More importantly, Pierce was also at the SHIELD base at the moment. If Liu Hao and Superman attacked, he would also be implicated. So, Pierce was not only helping Nick, but also helping himself. Sure enough, at the end of the call, Pierce said, I will try to solve it. You said you would take responsibility, and now you owe me a favor. After that, Pierce hung up the phone. Black Widow Natasha Romanoff asked quickly, is Pierce really okay? Nick Fury replied calmly, this is the only way. In Pierce's office, after ending the call with Nick Fury, Pierce rubbed his trigeminal nerve tiredly, feeling irritated by these things. At this moment, his computer screen displayed surveillance images from multiple angles, each of which was a real-time surveillance of the SHIELD base. That's right, since Liu Hao and Superman attacked the SHIELD base, Pierce has transferred all surveillance to his computer so that he can monitor Superman at any time. In addition to the surveillance on the computer, he also holds a mobile phone in his hand that can analyze Superman's various data in real time and calculate combat power. Pierce likes to analyze the combat power of all characters with super abilities and quantify them. For example, Wolverine in X-Men has a combat power of 10,000, Magneto has 30,000, Professor X is equivalent to Magneto, and Phoenix is as high as 50,000. The superhero on the computer screen, although the exact combat value is not displayed, is estimated to have at least 50,000 points more power than Phoenix. Superman, what a terrifying existence. Pierce couldn't help but curse in a low voice. Recalling the conflict between HYDRA and Superman, Pierce still felt a lingering fear in his heart. Fortunately, they never touched Superman's bottom line. Otherwise, the consequences would be unpredictable. At present, although it is impossible to directly affect Superman to end this dispute, Liu Hao is the key that can be used. All this is caused by him. This requires Pierce to use a way to affect Liu Hao. He picked up the phone and entered a set of numbers. After a short beep, the call was connected, and a voice came from the other end. This is Buckingham Palace. The camera switched, and Liu Hao in Superman form stood on the ruins of the 4th SHIELD base, making sure everything was reduced to ashes. Okay, next. After Liu Hao completed the task, he jumped up suddenly. However, just 5 meters into the air, the phone in his Superman costume suddenly rang. Liu Hao's phone is specially encrypted, and he can make calls without restrictions, but others cannot make calls at will. Only the creator, Liu Hao's boss Arthur, and 2 people designated by Liu Hao, his mother and Wanda, can contact him. Liu Hao stretched out his hand in the air, took out his phone from his waist, and saw that the caller ID was his mother, who was also Tony Stark's aunt, Elena Stark. The reason why his mother called at this moment is self-evident. Out of respect for his adoptive mother, Liu Hao answered the call. While gliding in the air, while answering the call, Elena's voice came from the phone. "Phone, my good child. Stop and calm down." Sure enough, it was because of the current situation. Liu Hao stopped flying, suspended in the air, and asked the phone. "The news reached you so quickly. SHILD is really good." What's more surprising is that they actually know Liu Hao's mother. His adoptive mother is the president of the Ruby Society and the biological sister of Iron Man originally. She is a heavyweight in the political arena. Not everyone can get her favor. Just like that, for several consecutive days, Liu Hao's life has always been like this. He stays at home for 3 days, then stays in a hotel for 3 days, repeating the cycle. Because the work requires rotation and rest, and Liu Hao is like a machine that never stops and does not need to rest. Liu Hao occasionally takes time to go to the police station. Black Widow, as always, handles trivial matters and small cases for Liu Hao. Bruce Banner gradually adapted to the work of the police station and complained to Liu Hao from time to time. "My relationship with Hulk has not eased. I don't know how to communicate with him." "Don't worry, take your time," Liu Hao always comforted him. "Hulk is not your enemy, you get along like roommates. You need to learn to respect him, understand him, and become friends with him, so that you can win-win." Banner nodded thoughtfully. As for Deadpool and the little wolf girl, although they failed to bring Hulk back in the last mission, they successfully defeated the Abomination and found Hulk, which was also considered to be the mission completed. In order to reward them, Liu Hao specially renovated their facilities and daily necessities in the prison. The current environment is completely different from the prison, and it can be said to be the most comfortable prisoner. Liu Hao's life has returned to normal. In the United States, SHILD base, Nick Fury is collecting information about other supernatural abilities around the world, selecting, investigating, researching, analyzing. Without Black Widow Natasha Romanoff, Nick's work is getting heavier and heavier. All this is caused by that guy, Liu Hao of the New York Police Department, and his friend, Superman. Nick was furious when he thought of this. This is the first time he has felt so aggrieved since he joined S.H.I.E.L.D. Just when Nick was irritated, the phone in the office suddenly rang. Chapter 40 Abnormal. He picked up the phone, and a voice came from the other end. "Hello, Chief Nick Fury. I'm General Ross Lauren. What can I do for you?" Nick Fury asked. Ross on the other end of the phone replied, "I think we've all been messed up by the same person recently, the arrogant Liu Hao. Both of them are smart people," and Nick immediately understood the other party's intention. He narrowed his eyes and said, "So, you want to form an alliance?" "The enemy of my enemy is my friend." Ross on the phone gritted his teeth. "We can work together to make Liu Hao and the New York Police Department pay the price." Liu Hao spent 7 or 8 days like this, busy between Michaela and Betty. The police department's affairs were also handled smoothly, and Banner's proficiency in handling affairs is now comparable to Black Widow. After receiving compensation from Ross's army, Liu Hao equipped the police department with sophisticated equipment. All this is thanks to the new weapons technology provided by Ross's army and S.H.I.E.L.D. As for whether they paid for it, Liu Hao didn't care. Since Liu Hao took over New York, the crime rate in New York has dropped to the lowest level of all states and cities in the United States. It's just that for some reason, the number of crimes has suddenly increased recently. In this case, Liu Hao will send Deadpool and Little Wolf Girl, who call themselves the Special Operations Team, to take action. These two people are actually quite useful, but sometimes they do things a little too much. Deadpool often justifies his behavior. "I just met a Chinese person, and he said that you Chinese have an idiom called cutting the grass and eradicating the roots. You also have Chinese ancestry, so you must understand this sentence better than me, which is why I cut the enemy into meat sauce." Definitely, it's also cool to watch them become meat sauce. Liu Hao thinks Deadpool's understanding of this word is quite correct, beyond his imagination. Anyway, Decedent is not a good person, so it doesn't matter how he dies. "Then how did you meet this friend? Where is he now?" Liu Hao asked curiously. Deadpool replied a little embarrassedly, "I actually met that person last night, and then he disappeared." Liu Hao was a little amused. "So you learned the idiom from the assassination target." Deadpool waved his hand and said, "Use it if it's useful. After all, that person is a small gang leader, and he speaks quite well. Although it was a bit embarrassing for him to cut his throat in front of his men, but I killed all his men. Buried with him. No problem at all." "Hee hee hee," Deadpool said with a grin. The little wolf girl gently touched her forehead, not wanting people to know that she and this guy are colleagues. Deadpool continued to play tricks without caring. As the saying goes, you can learn until you die. I am a person who loves to learn. Yes, you know what I'm talking about. Wait. Liu Hao interrupted Deadpool's dirty joke. Then he raised his eyebrows in dissatisfaction and said, "I didn't ask you to assassinate any Asians last night, did I?" Deadpool seemed to be thinking, paused, and then suddenly realized and said, "Killed the wrong person, hee hee." The little wolf girl next to him rolled her eyes at him, then turned to Liu Hao and said, I reminded him, but he cut his throat before I finished speaking. She also made cute movements like a little girl. Wrong, hee, but they're all bad guys, it's okay. Liu Hao didn't know whether to laugh or cry for a while, and didn't know how to evaluate this guy. However, Liu Hao didn't really blame Deadpool, just like a class teacher punishing students, deducting his vacation days and entertainment dollars for this mission. Every time a task is completed, Liu Hao will give rewards, and Deadpool is always the most active one, so he works so hard. This deduction made Deadpool depressed for a long time, thinking that he would have fewer happy times. The little wolf girl didn't care. After all, she just liked drinking. Liu Hao would not freeze Deadpool for this, and would let them come forward for some tricky things. A few words of guidance would be enough for Deadpool's problems. Liu Hao was enjoying this decadent life until his wife sent a text message saying that she would go home tonight, and his free time came to an end. Betty had been living in Liu Hao's house before, and she moved out only after she heard that Wanda was about to return from a business trip. Definitely, before leaving, Betty also helped Wanda wash all her clothes cleanly. This is the price of pursuing excitement. I should go home too. Liu Hao sighed, lifting the quilt on the double bed. This is not Liu Hao's home, nor is it the hotel where Michaela is staying temporarily, but as soon as Liu Hao got up, the tattooed bedmate next to him looked at him reluctantly. Are you leaving? Will you miss me? When will you come again? Those eyes were full of affection and touching, forming a sharp contrast with her cool tattoo image. If he hadn't had to fulfill his husband's responsibilities tonight, Liu Hao would have arranged another meeting with the judge. So, Liu Hao gently touched her face and said, I have something to do today. I'll come to see you next time, okay? The tattooed woman nodded lazily, yeah. After leaving, Liu Hao silently memorized the address of this place. He hadn't been here a week ago. Unexpectedly, the girl got his phone number from somewhere and called him inexplicably, hinting at spending a good night together. I thought there would be no contact, but she secretly contacted Liu Hao again recently and became more and more dependent. Liu Hao reluctantly accepted this third lover. Including Wanda, he already has 4. Fortunately, he has Superman's physique. If it were an ordinary person, he would have at most 2, and it would be difficult to cope with a week. After Wanda returned home, as expected, Liu Hao had to fulfill his husband's duties again. Fortunately, Superman's ability made every time like the first time, with pure colors, and Wanda did not notice anything unusual. Lying on the bed, Liu Hao noticed that Wanda was in a bad mood, so he casually asked, Are you worried about anything recently? Wanda leaned on Liu Hao's arms and replied, My brother is a little bit abnormal recently. He goes out early and comes back late every day, and he smells of alcohol when he comes back. Liu Hao thought Wanda had discovered his secret and was relieved. He casually said, Young people at this age are often addicted to pleasure. Don't think too much. Liu Hao thought to himself, he has been dealing with so many women recently, who is more indulgent than himself. You are tired after running around all day, go to bed early. Liu Hao said. Wanda nodded, yeah. Just as the two were about to fall asleep, Liu Hao's phone suddenly rang. At first glance, it was neither the police station nor the number in the address book, but a call from a special mobile phone. Liu Hao immediately understood that it was the special communication device of Deadpool and Little Wolf Girl, and only their phones would be like this. However, why did they call him so late? Liu Hao got up and went to the kitchen to answer the phone. Chapter 41, The Painful Price. On the other end of the phone, Deadpool spoke first. Gui Ning, Liu Hao master. Don't learn the British accent. What's wrong? Did you make the wrong target again? Or did you go too far? Liu Hao asked. Deadpool and the Little Wolf Girl rarely called Liu Hao. If they did, it was usually because they were short of money, made a mistake in killing someone, or got lost. Calling so late, it was probably because of a mistake in killing someone. Deadpool on the other end of the phone replied, no one was killed. Deadpool will not fall in the same place twice. Then why did you call in the middle of the night? Saint Seiya Deadpool who will not fall in the same place twice. Liu Hao asked. Deadpool on the phone said a little embarrassedly, It's nothing. It's mainly because I was in bed with 4 women just now. One of them has a really great figure, perfectly interpreting what it means to bear fruit from thin branches, the feel and movement trajectory. Liu Hao interrupted Deadpool impatiently. Have you changed your career to become a pimp? I don't want to hear these details. Get to the point. Okay. Deadpool was a little disappointed because he couldn't show off his skills, and then said, I came out after the task was completed, and was about to go back to prison with Laura, but suddenly I couldn't find her. Liu Hao responded, I was relaxing after completing the task. I was either drinking or on the way to drink. Why don't you go to the nightclub to look for her? I thought so too, but the communication positioning couldn't find her. According to the last few positionings of the device, I searched several nightclubs and hotels but couldn't find anyone. Deadpool explained. Can't the communication equipment positioning find it? Generally speaking, in any place in the United States with a signal, even if the mobile phone is out of power, it can be located. Liu Hao began to care a little. That's why I was confused, Deadpool replied, and then said, by the way, Laura's group of pretty boys heard me asking them, and they thought I was her boyfriend, and they started to argue with me. Then I chopped them all, about 8 of them, and I dealt with the bodies. You'll be fine by then. Love you. Deadpool threw a kiss to Liu Hao across the phone. Liu Hao cursed directly. You killed an ordinary person again? Liu Hao slightly supported his forehead. Deadpool always made him worry, but compared to the missing little wolf girl, this was nothing. The little wolf girl was one of his less worrying subordinates, and basically no mistakes had been made. Now the little wolf girl's communication has been lost, and even the communication cannot be contacted. This is not a coincidence, which means, Liu Hao raised his head again, his eyes sharp. There are forces that don't know how to live or die provoking me, Liu Hao. Deadpool on the other end of the phone was very excited. Oh my, someone is so bold that he dares to provoke us? Is it true? I can show my skills again. Who is that guy? Tell me quickly, my knife is itching. Deadpool was as excited as a child who got a new toy. It's not clear yet, you have to check it yourself. Liu Hao said. Just pay attention to the military or supernatural forces, such as mutant. Check these forces, on the one hand, because the US military and Liu Hao have a lot of intersections, and it is not clear which ignorant force dares to provoke him. On the other hand, the little wolf girl is a clone of Wolverine after all, and ordinary people can hardly control her no matter how strong their manpower is. Most of those who can catch her are supernatural humans. No matter which force, as long as you find and confirm that they have touched my people, you can do whatever you want. Liu Hao directly said something harsh. Deadpool responded ecstatically. I understand. Don't worry, Boss Liu Hao, this time I will definitely confirm it before taking action. Kill their whole family absolutely fairly. Deadpool hung up the phone with inexplicable excitement. Then, Liu Hao picked up the phone again and called Arthur, the director of the General Administration. The call was connected, and the director asked, Phone, what's wrong? Hasn't the military compensation been paid yet? Liu Hao replied, It's not compensation, it's someone provoking me and publicly insulting me. What? Someone dared to insult you? That's insulting the American police. Which force is it? Do I need to use public power? The director immediately asked. We will know which force it is soon. Liu Hao said coldly, I can handle it. You don't need to intervene. You just need to help me find Laura Kinney. She was last seen in some high-level bars in New York. Just check who took her away. Okay, I'll try my best to help you find her. Arthur agreed and asked, But, Phone, are you sure you don't need me to come forward? Public power can solve the problem more easily. You know my personality. Liu Hao refused directly, and then said fiercely, Whoever provokes me in my territory, I will make him pay the most painful price in person. Arthur on the other end of the phone listened, and no longer insisted on using public power. He then said, I understand, Phone. I will arrange for someone to find Laura Kinney and the forces behind her kidnappers as soon as possible. I believe there will be results soon. After the call ended, Deadpool and the director of the General Administration began to investigate the little wolf girl, that is, Laura Kinney. SHIELD base. General Ross, the mastermind behind the scenes, and S.H.I.E.L.D. director Nick Fury have not yet realized the seriousness of the situation. The two sat together in the conference room, discussing how to teach New York police Liu Hao a profound lesson. During the conversation, Nick suddenly asked, General Ross, the experiment of super soldier serum and gamma ray has failed. Now is the time to lose a lot. Are you sure you can resist Liu Hao's forces? We have other allies, don't worry about this problem. Ross said, Besides, I didn't say that our super soldier serum experiment failed. Nick was slightly surprised, and Ross explained, Hulk ran away, the abomination died, but the experiment is still going on. Ross drank the red wine in the glass in one gulp and said arrogantly, The third generation of experimental subjects are already in preparation. Liu Hao, he will only be torn to pieces by the product of our new experiment. The United States, 10 Rings prison for serious offenders. After an unknown period of time, the little wolf girl slowly woke up from her coma and began to look at this strange place. I was caught again. The little wolf girl couldn't help muttering in her heart. This time there was no perverted environment like before, surrounded by iron walls and pitch black. This looks like an ordinary dungeon, and the iron railings are made of unknown materials. The little wolf girl looked out and found that there were still 2 people guarding the cell door. The little wolf girl sneered and said to the 2 people at the cell door, What's your boss thinking? You locked me up in this shabby place and sent 2 people to guard it, thinking that you can prevent someone from rescuing me? A guard retorted, Shut up, kid. You don't know that you have been captured by the world-famous 10 Rings. Another guard echoed, Who doesn't know that you have claws? Your hands and feet are locked. What can you do? We can take turns on you. There are our people around for 100 miles. How can you escape? Chapter 42, Clean and Complete. 10 Rings? Why would they arrest me? The little wolf girl was puzzled. This gang had been rampant for many years in American history, and the little wolf girl had naturally heard of the name of 10 Rings. The leader of 10 Rings is Chinese, who is said to have immortality and is the Mongolian Emperor Genghis Khan. But this is just a legend, and the little wolf girl doesn't know the actual situation. She couldn't think of when she offended 10 Rings or hindered their plans. Could it be Liu Hao? But 10 Rings is not active in New York, so he shouldn't conflict with Liu Hao. Perhaps the answer is not the relationship between 10 Rings and Liu Hao, but that 10 Rings was hired by other powerful people to threaten Liu Hao by kidnapping herself. The little wolf girl thought about it, and finally smiled. The two guards were stunned when they saw this scene. One of them turned to his companion and asked, "Is this woman crazy?" The higher-ups said they wanted to capture her alive. "Will we be scolded if we scare her silly?" "Idiots, I think you are ridiculously stupid. Do you think your gang is so powerful that you are not afraid of any force?" The little wolf girl shook her head gently and said, "You don't understand what kind of existence you are facing at all." Outside the dungeon, in the area where the little wolf girl was, the members of the 10 Rings were densely packed, holding all kinds of weapons in their hands, surrounding the high walls, 3 layers outside 3 layers, with nearly 10,000 people. This is the defensive formation commonly used by the leader of the 10 Rings, usually used to imprison serious criminals, and in the history of the 10 Rings, there has never been a precedent of being broken. "Hey, brother, today is the 3rd day we have been guarding this guy, right?" On the outer high wall, a guard chatted with the person next to him. The guard who didn't want to deal with it couldn't stand the loneliness and responded, "Well, it's been 3 days, and there's no movement. I don't know if the other party is timid or too stupid to find this place. I don't even have a chance to show my excellent shooting skills." "How long does it take for someone to come to rescue in such a situation?" asked the first guard. At this time, the third guard interrupted, "You guy, are you new here?" "Yes, today is my first day on duty. I was sent to the outermost because of my outstanding performance," the first guard replied. "For serious criminals like this, usually someone will come to try to break through the next day or even that night. The sooner they start, the sooner they will surrender." "But why is your voice weird?" the second guard said, noticing something strange. "What are you talking with in your mouth?" The first guard waved his hand and explained, "Nothing. Maybe because I wear 2 masks, my speech is a bit strange." "2 masks?" The other guards were surprised. "That's right." The guard took off his mask, revealing the mask under the red tights. "This is it? You bastard." The guard panicked and wanted to shoot, but he was a step slower than Deadpool and was suddenly attacked by him. Then, 3 gunshots rang out, bullets flew, and all the guards around were killed. Seeing this, the guards in the distance came to support with guns. Deadpool stretched his muscles, holding a katana in one hand and a pistol in the other, and said excitedly, "Let's kill." After that, he rushed into the crowd and started killing. The 3 layers of guards, with knives up and down, killed countless 10 Rings members. Deadpool's killing game lasted for more than 2 hours. Finally, the sniper shot him in the head from a distance. Having seen Deadpool's super recovery ability, the sniper fired a few more shots until Deadpool was beaten into a pulp. "That guy should be dead, right?" The sniper breathed a sigh of relief. But when he turned his eyes to the gate, he found that a figure was slowly stepping over the corpses and heading straight to the center of the prison. The sniper just aimed at the burly figure and was ready to shoot, but was spotted by the other party first. He saw his mouth curled up, then raised his pistol, and with a bang, the bullet hit the sniper's forehead. Damn! Pistol bullet. How could it be? The sniper died with confusion. Liu Hao walked to the center of the prison, and Deadpool only needed to leave him there for self-healing. Liu Hao knew where the sniper's confusion came from before his death. After all, like gunfighting, you only need to accurately control the wrist skills to greatly increase the shooting distance and accuracy. There may be no second skill in the world. So in theory, as long as there are enough pistols and bullets, Liu Hao can destroy any powerful team or force in the world. Definitely, he could just shoot everything with hot weapons, but that would be too easy for them. No matter who hired these people and how powerful their equipment is, Liu Hao must let them suffer the greatest pain if he wants them to die. This is why Liu Hao agreed to let Deadpool go on a killing spree, because he himself also intends to do so. Liu Hao stepped into the prison. As soon as he stepped in, more than 200 men in black, holding various ninja tools, suddenly emerged from the dark corner and surrounded him. "You are finally here, prison escapee. Our group of ninjas have been waiting here for a long time." The black-clad man who looked like the leader looked at Liu Hao and said with a mean smile, "You dare to come in with only a pistol? Where do you get the courage? We have more than 200 ninjas. How can you fight us?" Liu Hao showed his pistol and 4-round magazine, and said disdainfully, "Just use this pistol. It is enough to blow up all of you ninjas who are living a comfortable life one by one." The leader was furious. "Baga Yalu, cut him." The ninjas immediately swarmed up. In the darkness, the sound of gunfire was intertwined with the roars and screams of the islanders. Every time the sparks from the pistol illuminated the darkness, an islander fell at Liu Hao's feet. Liu Hao was already bloodthirsty. The revengeful anger aroused by these guys, coupled with the Chinese blood in his bones, made him kill all these comfortable islanders. One of the island ninjas panicked, crawled over the bodies of his brothers in a panic, and after escaping from Liu Hao's range, he frantically called for help on the radio. Hey, we can't hold on. Quick, take out that secret weapon. Without the support of that big guy, we will be wiped out immediately. Puff. Before the escaping ninja finished speaking, the leader stabbed him in the abdomen with a knife and cursed, Baga Yalu. Japan does not allow deserters. But glancing at the crazy killing Liu Hao, the leader wisely picked up the radio and continued to shout, he is right, help, we need help, release that monster. Not long after, the ninja leader was not spared and also died at the hands of Liu Hao, still using their knife to cut off his head. After killing all the Japanese, Liu Hao still weighed the knives and commented softly, even the knives are not well imitated, they are so weird. Throwing away the knife, Liu Hao continued to move forward. At this time, Liu Hao's keen hearing caught the roar of the monster from the depths of the prison. Liu Hao tidied his clothes without any care and continued to move forward. Chapter 43 Mutant. Unexpectedly, there was a huge amount of arena inside. Following Liu Hao's route, it happened to be the entrance of the arena, which was full of Ten Rings senior executives. Please look, the one who didn't know he had fallen into our trap was Liu Hao, the inconspicuous policeman from the New York Police Department. The host in the arena exaggeratedly introduced to the senior executives. His opponent is our strongest experimental result tonight, the ultimate fighting monster from the military. The senior executives followed the host's gaze and found that in the other corner of the arena, there was a 5-meter-high monster bound by chains. As soon as they saw the monster, they all cheered. Because at this moment, they were waiting to see Liu Hao and the character on the opposite side of the arena fight fiercely. At the other end of the arena, Liu Hao's opponent was the third experimental product of Ross's military. Perhaps it was temporarily created to fight Liu Hao. The blue-skinned Hulk replica was full of various tubes, as if it was injected with drugs all the time. In addition to the huge muscles, the blue Hulk drooled like a hungry beast and made a low roar from time to time. The more sick the blue Hulk was, the more excited the high-ranking officials on the stage were. They were looking forward to the blue Hulk tearing Liu Hao alive. Maybe if Liu Hao lived longer, the blue Hulk would be able to play with him more happily, and the high-ranking officials would be more satisfied watching. They dared to watch the live broadcast here because they had the mutant who joined the Ten Rings as guards to protect them. So the high-ranking officials cheered and were ready to watch Liu Hao being torn into pieces by the blue Hulk. However, the disdainful smile on Liu Hao's face surprised everyone. They thought Liu Hao was crazy, and the host immediately ordered to release the blue Hulk. The blue Hulk, who was intubated, broke free from the restraints and rushed towards Liu Hao with a roar. Liu Hao did not move at all in the cheers of the crowd, and was indifferent even when the blue Hulk approached him. Finally, the blue Hulk punched Liu Hao. Huge amounts of sound vibrations and strong air waves erupted with the two as the core. He died so soon? TSK. I thought he was so powerful, but he turned out to be just an ordinary person? The high-ranking officials talked a lot, thinking that Liu Hao was useless, until someone noticed that there was not a drop of blood at the scene. Then, someone exclaimed, He's not dead? Not only is he not dead, F***K, he's fine. Liu Hao easily caught the blue Hulk's fist with his palm. The monster didn't believe it, and threw several punches in a row. Liu Hao let it hit him this time. As the blue Hulk's physical strength gradually ran out, not only the blue Hulk, but also all the senior executives present were confused and panicked. It's my turn. Liu Hao responded concisely, and then punched lightly. The next second, the blue Hulk was directly knocked out. The blue monster's body was deeply embedded in the wall, just as it tried its best to get out of the wall. On Liu Hao's side, 2 red lights quietly lit up. The heat vision that followed swept over and swallowed the blue Hulk. In less than 2 minutes, the blue Hulk turned into ashes. Oh my god, what's going on? Run, quick, come and protect me. The senior executives finally panicked and fled in fear. Liu Hao soared into the air, his red eyes flashing as he scanned the high-level officials in the arena, and he said coldly, "Don't even think about surviving." Liu Hao floated in the air like a demon, his eyes red, and his hot eyes swept the entire arena. Wherever his eyes went, no grass grew, and no creature could escape his power. The entire arena, whether it was mutants or ordinary people, was bloodily cleansed. In the dungeon where the little wolf girl was, the 2 guards vaguely heard screams coming from above. This couldn't be the voice of Liu Hao alone, and Liu Hao's men couldn't have gotten here. So there is only one answer: those voices all come from their own people. Instantly, the 2 guards panicked. There are thousands of people outside holding high-tech weapons and mutants. Definitely, they can't panic for long. The next moment, gunshots rang out, and 2 bullets that could turn accurately hit the foreheads of the 2 guards. Then, Liu Hao, holding a gun, naked upper body, and covered in blood, came to the little wolf girl and smiled. Superman is solved. we can go. The little wolf girl nodded, not showing surprise. After all, she had expected everything. At the SHIELD base, Ross looked relaxed, imagining how tragic Liu Hao would scream before he died. Nick had a bad feeling and asked, "Are you sure your third test subject can solve all this?" Ross said arrogantly, "Relax, what do you think of Liu Hao? He is just an ordinary person, not Superman. We have deployed so many people together. Ten Rings has it, Mutant has it, and the ace test subject has it too. A little Liu Hao is enough for him to die tens of millions of times." Nick Fury retorted, "Liu Hao is not Superman, but he knows Superman. The forces we deployed are probably not enough to fill Superman's teeth. So haven't we been closely monitoring everything within 100 miles around the Ten Rings prison?" General Ross said, calling up hundreds of surveillance videos. With so many surveillances, there is no blind spot in all directions. Once Superman appears, the surveillance can capture him immediately. "Thank you SHIELD for your technical support," General Ross said with satisfaction. Nick looked at the surveillance screen and nodded. Indeed, they had deployed surveillance in all directions leading to the Ten Rings prison. But under the surveillance camera, Nick and Ross did not find any trace of Superman. They only saw Deadpool, who entered first, and Liu Hao, who waited for Deadpool to deal with everything before entering. At that time, they laughed at Liu Hao, a guy who didn't know what was waiting for him. Hundreds of lurking Japanese ninjas, as well as the third experimental subject and mutant, were waiting to tear him to pieces. Seeing this scene, Ross began to celebrate. "Now that so much time has passed, we should also collect intelligence, right?" Nick wanted to know the situation anxiously. Ross nodded and called 10 Rings, but no one answered. What happened? The people of 10 Rings disobeyed orders? This was Ross's first thought. Then he called the army guarding the prison, but no one answered. The third and fourth calls, still no answer. Ross was already a little panicked, and Nick saw this and quickly called the positioning device installed on Mutant. Surprisingly, he found that all the positioning devices were damaged. Under normal circumstances, even if a person dies, the positioning device should still be there. And now this situation shows that that group of people are not only dead, but also dead without a burial place. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Ross was completely stunned. The 10 Rings were completely wiped out. Nick Fury said in disbelief. Deadpool doesn't have the ability to cause such casualties, and it's even more impossible for Liu Hao to be an ordinary person. Chapter 44. The Power of Allies. So, it's him who caused all this. It's always him. It's Superman. When Nick Fury said this, the tragedy caused by Superman destroying the Earth last time immediately emerged in his mind. Instantly, Nick Fury was furious and cursed loudly. "Damn it! Damn it! Damn it!" Nick cursed and threw things, then pointed at Ross's nose and said, "You promised me. You said this time it's foolproof and you can kill Liu Hao before Superman appears. But what's the situation now? 10 Rings, Mutant, and Experiment Number 3 are all gone. Can you guarantee that this is something that Liu Hao, an ordinary person, plus Deadpool can do?" Ross was speechless, but he couldn't refute Nick Fury, because his plan did fail. He thought Liu Hao would break into the 10 Rings prison alone because of anger. If Liu Hao really did this, torture and death would definitely be waiting for him. However, this did not happen, and Superman never appeared under surveillance. Could it be that Liu Hao has other means? Liu Hao, how capable is he? In the New York Police Department, in Liu Hao's office, Deadpool, Little Wolf Girl, and Black Widow stood in front of Liu Hao, waiting for the next instruction. After listening to Liu Hao's general description, Black Widow asked, "So, the force that dared to provoke you was the army led by Ross Lauren?" "It is the army, but not just the army." Liu Hao responded sharply. "The army alone cannot create so many different forces, so the army has allies." Black Widow Natasha Romanoff nodded and said nothing. "The task of finding another force cooperating with the army is given to Deadpool and Laura, and the people in the headquarters will cooperate with you." Liu Hao gave orders to the two. Deadpool still replied with a grin. "Got it, sir. I'm Wade Wilson, also known as Deadpool. I'll do my best and fight to the death. Although I can't die, huh?" Liu Hao ignored Deadpool's nonsense and warned him. "You're still talking nonsense. If you lose Laura again this time, I'll stick your knife into your wrist and sew up your chattering mouth." Deadpool shuddered when he thought of himself like this. Is he still Deadpool who can't speak? I'm afraid he will become a villain in a single superhero movie. Then Deadpool thought about it and said aggrievedly, "She was caught accidentally. What does it have to do with me? Woo woo woo." As soon as he finished speaking, he saw Liu Hao's cold eyes and immediately changed his words. "Understand, I will definitely put Laura first this time. She is braver than protecting my brother." Laura, the little wolf girl, just glanced at Liu Hao for a second time, then nodded without saying a word, not knowing what she was thinking. Liu Hao gave instructions to Black Widow again. "And Natasha Romanoff, you used to work in S.H.I.E.L.D., and you are very good at investigating and analyzing forces. When the people from the General Administration come down, you go to assist them." Black Widow agreed. You must remember this firmly, Liu Hao said fiercely. No matter how big the forces behind them are, if they provoke me, we must find them at all costs and make them pay the price. After giving the order, Deadpool, the little wolf girl, Black Widow, and the people from the General Administration all began to search for the forces of the military allies based on the existing clues. 3 days later, in a hotel in the United States, it was just dawn. Liu Hao climbed up from his old lover Michaela. Looking at the satisfied Michaela, Liu Hao silently lit a cigarette. When he smoked, his temperament spread with the smoke. Michaela saw Liu Hao smoking, walked over and put her arms around his neck, and asked softly, "What's the matter? Have you encountered any troubles recently?" Liu Hao replied, "Not all troubles, I'm just thinking about the problem." His eyes were firm, and he added, "And the problem will be solved soon, and I will be satisfied soon." Michaela stared at Liu Hao, who was talking seriously, and felt that he was particularly charming. She couldn't help but touch his cheek gently. "I believe you can perfectly solve any challenge, Liu Hao. You are like a superhero in my heart." Michaela looked at Liu Hao affectionately, without concealing her admiration, almost flattering. Whether mentally or physically, she is very good at showing kindness. Liu Hao felt Michaela's hint, the corners of his mouth slightly raised, lifted the quilt, and cheered up like a general, ready to attack again. 4 hours later, Liu Hao, who had sorted out his clothes, went to the police station. After arriving at the office, he called Black Widow and asked, "How is the case I gave you 3 days ago?" Black Widow operated the tablet in her hand and showed the police station's attendance record. She flipped through it and said, "These 3 days are the same as the first day. There is no progress. The military's allies hid too well, and Deadpool and Laura are like headless flies flying around outside." "Oh, no clues at all? How did you judge? Tell me in detail." Liu Hao asked Black Widow to explain clearly. Black Widow browsed on the tablet, and when he found the key information, he explained it to Liu Hao with pictures and texts. Every step, the enemy was cautious, whether it was the transaction with 10 rings, the ninjas hired from the Little Japan, or the mutant mercenaries who came from nowhere. No trace could be found. There was no starting point, no record, and everything seemed to have never existed. Liu Hao looked at the investigation report, and the more he read it, the more he felt something was wrong. But in the end, he smiled inexplicably. Noticing Liu Hao's abnormality, Black Widow asked, "What's wrong? Have you found any clues?" Liu Hao shook his head and suddenly changed the subject. "Come with me to Black Mountain Prison. I have a task for you to handle." Black Mountain Prison is a high-standard prison specially set up in New York for special criminals. Its security measures are no less than those of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s top prison. Moreover, New York is Liu Hao's territory. After he took over, he continued to invest heavily in strengthening prison facilities. Today's Black Mountain Prison has become a place that criminals are terrified of and is known as the Hell of New York. However, only special criminals are held here, and ordinary criminals have no right to enter. "Go to Black Mountain Prison together?" Black Widow asked in confusion. "Why do you suddenly want to go there?" Liu Hao did not answer, got up and put on his coat, leaving only one sentence. "You will know when you go there." Black Widow hesitated for a moment. Liu Hao had already left, so she had to follow him. The two got into Liu Hao's car and sped towards Black Mountain Prison. From a distance, they saw a sign above the prison. "Military stronghold, no entry, consequences at your own risk." There are 7 layers of strict defense outside the prison. Liu Hao approached the checkpoint and a fully armed guard signaled him to stop. Liu Hao rolled down the window and the guard lowered his head to check. After recognizing Liu Hao, the guard exclaimed, "Mr. Liu Hao, you are here." He then notified the other guards, "New York Light Liu Hao is here. Open all channels." Chapter 45. Obey your superior. "No need to do that. Just swipe the card and check the iris as usual." Liu Hao reminded. "What if one day I meet someone who can imitate my appearance? Wouldn't it be troublesome? You must have seen many people with this ability when you work here." The guard immediately bowed and apologized, and Liu Hao passed through according to the prescribed procedures. Black Widow watched this scene and secretly admired Liu Hao's rigor. The two got off the car and went through the routine body scan and metal detection. Because they were carrying portable weapons, Black Widow asked Liu Hao if he needed to take them off. Liu Hao nodded. "Take it off. You won't need it for a while, don't worry." Black Widow hesitated for a moment, but slowly took off all the weapons. The two continued to walk deeper into the prison. There were many checkpoints inside, and the wall structures were different. At least 10 different materials such as metal, titanium alloy, glass, wood, electric current, etc. were used for walls and iron fences. Liu Hao saw Black Widow's doubts and explained, "This is to prevent the prisoners from using the ability to manipulate matter." They walked all the way to the last prison, and Liu Hao asked the guard to open the door. This room, which looked like an interrogation room, was full of various torture instruments, but the protagonist was missing. Black Widow asked in confusion, "Why are there no prisoners here?" "Yes." Liu Hao turned to Black Widow. "Isn't it here?" "What?" Black Widow wanted to escape, but Liu Hao grabbed her lightly and pressed her against the wall of the room. Definitely, he showed mercy, otherwise Black Widow might die. Liu Hao slowly raised his hand and tightly strangled Black Widow's neck, making her struggle in the air. Why? Black Widow screamed in pain. Liu Hao's eyes were cold and responded, "Why don't you do something else? Why do you have to be someone else's running dog?" Hearing this, Black Widow's eyes widened instantly. She tried to break free frantically, but Liu Hao's iron arms prevented her from escaping. "I asked you to investigate to give you a chance to start over and expose S.H.I.E.L.D.'s past. Unfortunately, you wasted your chance." Liu Hao's face was close to Black Widow, and he smiled mockingly. "Don't worry, I won't let you get away so easily." Liu Hao let go of his hand, and Black Widow fell to the ground, breathing rapidly. What do you want?" 4 hours later, Liu Hao left Black Mountain Prison. He detained Black Widow there and returned to the police station. Back in the office, Liu Hao called Bruce Banner over. As soon as Banner entered the door, he saw Liu Hao's serious expression and knew that there was a mission waiting for him. These days, Banner was almost tired of staying in the police station and was eager to have something to do. "Liu Hao, is there anything I can help you with?" Banner asked. Liu Hao nodded and said something that surprised Banner. "Go to the Human Resources Department and ask them to remove Natasha Romanoff from her position. You will take over her job in the future." "What? Replace Natasha Romanoff and let me take over? This is too fast." Banner was confused and asked, "Natasha Romanoff can't work anymore? But isn't it too hasty to remove her position like this?" Liu Hao interrupted Banner. "If you want to take over, your first task is to be obedient and don't talk too much." Liu Hao glared at Banner fiercely. "I took you in, but I didn't let you stay here forever. Without me, you will be captured by the army for experiments at any time. If you don't want to be taken away, just do your job obediently. You must obey your superiors when doing things. I am your boss. I am the Sky of New York, do you understand?" Although Banner didn't know the current situation of Black Widow, he could see that Liu Hao was furious. At the moment, if he provoked him, he might get into big trouble. Banner nodded wisely. "I understand. Go and do it." Liu Hao waved Banner to leave. Banner went to the HR department and told the internal staff according to Liu Hao's instructions. He originally thought that the other party would ask some reasons, but the girl was just stunned for a moment after hearing the request. Then, she shook her head as if she felt sorry for Black Widow's fate. After a simple operation on the computer, Black Widow's position was terminated. The whole process was incredibly efficient, and Banner was surprised by it. He didn't expect Liu Hao to be so decisive in handling personnel changes. The HR staff didn't say a word throughout the process, as if Liu Hao's orders were the golden rule. On the other hand, after Banner left, Liu Hao took out his mobile phone and dialed the number of a close person in the address book. "Phone? Why did you call me suddenly? What happened?" When the phone was connected, the voice of Liu Hao's adoptive mother came. The adoptive mother was Elena Stark, the president of Hongshihui. "I have something to tell you," Liu Hao said calmly. "I want Nick Fury to die." Elena was slightly shocked when she heard the news. Before answering the phone, she had prepared herself mentally, but she didn't expect Liu Hao to get rid of S.H.I.E.L.D. director Nick Fury. It's not difficult to kill a person, but SHIELD will be turbulent in the future, and the aftermath will be very tricky. "I know this will put you in an awkward position, but I gave him a chance last time," Liu Hao said coldly. "He didn't learn the lesson last time, and this time he angered me again. Since he doesn't cherish the opportunity, let him pay with his life." Elena replied after hearing this, "Since you have made up your mind, Mom will support you unconditionally, and I will help you solve the S.H.I.E.L.D. I don't plan to destroy S.H.I.E.L.D. It will still exist, but Nick is gone," Liu Hao added. Liu Hao's eyes were fierce, and he didn't activate the thermal vision, but the anger in his eyes was clearly visible. Nick and Ross both have to pay the price for what they did. Ross can be let go, but Nick deserves to die. Feeling the anger of her adopted son, Elena said directly, "Do whatever you want to do boldly, and Mom will help you clean up the mess." After getting the promise from his adoptive mother, Liu Hao hung up the phone. Then, Liu Hao left the New York Police Department, walked into an alley, and put on his glasses. Soon, a strong sonic boom shook from the ground to the sky, and Liu Hao transformed into Superman and soared into the sky. On Ross Lauren's side, he was standing outside the laboratory of the Super Soldier Serum Project. Since the plan failed, Ross has been rushing here nonstop. He was eager to create an experimental subject that could fight Superman, an experimental subject that was stronger than Hulk. However, problems occurred one after another in the experiments, and the participants were either seriously injured or died. Now, Ross can no longer find soldiers willing to participate in the experiment. Standing outside the laboratory, Ross clenched his fists, and a bold idea came to his mind. "No one, then I will go into battle myself." Ross, who had fought for many years, was threatened by Liu Hao for the first time and felt unprecedented humiliation. Perhaps only under the pressure of life and death can he rise like Hulk. With such determination, Ross stepped into the laboratory, but he didn't know that the opportunity had been lost. Suddenly, the door was kicked open violently, and a team of fully armed soldiers broke in. They swarmed towards Ross Lauren like a swarm of bees and subdued him without any explanation. Chapter 46, Going Wild. What are you doing? Who sent you here? Ross Lauren struggled uncontrollably, thinking that he was still an experimental subject. The leading soldier stepped forward and announced, General Ross Lauren, suspected of endangering national security, must be tried by a military court. If you have any questions, find a lawyer in court, take him away. Just like that, Ross Lauren was taken away, and the experimental base was closed by the military. Inside the SHILD base, Nick Fury was restless. He just messed with the friend of the person he shouldn't mess with the most in the world. Although the insider Black Widow helped him resist the police's search of SHILD and himself, he was still flustered. In Nick's heart, Liu Hao has become an omnipotent existence. He was afraid, and subconsciously seemed to feel that Liu Hao was standing at the door of SHILD. At this moment, a figure that Nick was both familiar and frightened of appeared in the surveillance video at the door of S.H.I.E.L.D. What was more terrifying than Liu Hao was Superman. He was standing at the door of SHIELD. Liu Hao outside the door looked at the surveillance camera, raised his mouth and said, Director Nick Fury, you should know who I am. I need your help with something. Can you let me in to discuss it in detail? Nick panicked. The Superman in front of him was like a demon. No, it was scarier than a demon. Ghosts still have weaknesses, but Superman, he can only let him bully and can't resist. But can he find an excuse not to open the door? No. If he directly refuses to let him in, it is equivalent to directly admitting the fact. Only by pretending to know nothing and acting in front of Superman can he escape. Hold on, Nick. He secretly warned himself. Nick stepped forward to open the door of SHIELD for Liu Hao. Facing Superman Liu Hao, Nick pretended to be calm. Superman? Why are you here to ask for help? Mr. Superman, we don't know if you are a friend or foe. I am Superman. Just ask any kid. Superman is a hero, Liu Hao said as he walked in, still smiling. But director, why is your forehead full of sweat? Did you just finish the sauna? The air conditioner is broken. Let's talk business. I'm busy. Nick said unhappily. Superman Liu Hao passed Nick, walked straight to the office and sat on the chair. Seeing this scene, Nick was extremely panicked, but he forced himself to calm down and crossed his arms. Mr. Superman, even if you are famous, I am afraid I can't help you if this happens. Don't be so hostile, Chief Nick. Liu Hao put his feet on the table and said with a smile, It's actually nothing big. My friend Liu Hao was plotted against by the military and another force. Now I can't find any clues about that force, so I think SHIELD can help me investigate. Nick was flustered, but still said, Investigate? Can't your friend in the New York Police Department find out? Liu Hao walked to Nick and put his hand on Nick's shoulder. Yes, that force is powerful, and the police on Liu Hao's side can't find any clues. SHIELD has a huge network of relationships. Do you know that force? There are many forces that are good at aftermath. Just say that they provoked Liu Hao. Who knows which one it is? Nick's voice trembled, but he tried his best to stay calm. Really? Superman Liu Hao stared at Nick closely. It seems that you really don't know anything. Nick and Liu Hao looked at each other, becoming more and more panicked. Suddenly, Liu Hao took action. He crossed his hands and ripped off Nick's arm. Ouch! Nick covered his bleeding arm in pain, looked at Liu Hao in horror, and stammered. What are you doing? You are killing innocent people. Whether I killed the wrong person or not, we both know it in our hearts, right, Nick? Hearing this, Nick hesitated. Then, a bold idea came to his mind. Superman, you are... Liu Hao didn't give Nick a chance to speak, and punched him directly. The air shook instantly, and Liu Hao's fist blasted at Nick like a cannonball. The fist hit Nick's head, and his brain splattered. At the moment of Nick Fury's death, the alarm of the SHIELD base sounded. Liu Hao disdained to pay attention, kicked over the titanium alloy door, and left in a swagger. At the moment, Phil Coulson, deputy director of S.H.I.E.L.D., rushed over after hearing the news. Seeing this scene, he was completely dumbfounded. Damn, that's Superman? Phil Coulson couldn't help but swear. His men asked, What should we do now? Phil Coulson said that no matter what, even if Superman came, he couldn't run wild in S.H.I.E.L.D. So Phil Coulson fired desperately, and his men also fired at full power. But it was useless. Liu Hao was indifferent. He only heard waves of steel collisions echoing in the air. Liu Hao had no intention of killing today. He glanced at Phil Coulson, then took off and left this place. Phil Coulson watched all this and couldn't help but mutter to himself, What is going on? On another floor, in Pierce's office, Pierce, who witnessed all this, watched Superman leave, drank quietly, and whispered, Nick, I warned you not to mess with him. After returning to New York, Liu Hao changed into new clothes and returned to the police station. When he walked in, Deadpool and Little Wolf Girl had been waiting in Liu Hao's office for a long time. As soon as he saw Liu Hao, Deadpool jumped up immediately. Liu Hao, You are so cruel. We saw you sending Superman out from the sky. You know which force has offended you, but you still let us run around outside. It's so tiring to let others be exposed to the wind and sun, wash their faces with tears, and live on dirt, woo woo woo. If you keep talking, I won't give you money for drinks and sex. Liu Hao warned directly. Deadpool immediately shut up. This is the best way to control Deadpool. What a joke. If you can't have sex, what's the point of life? Deadpool muttered to himself. When Liu Hao sat down on the chair, he explained to the two people calmly. Yes, I knew who did it a long time ago. I sent you to act just to see your ability. Deadpool jumped up again. What? Boss, are you sure? I need to doubt the ability of Deadpool, the first mercenary in the universe. Then may I ask Mr. Universe's first mercenary, how was Laura kidnapped under your nose last time? Liu Hao's words made Deadpool speechless again. Anyway, the matter is resolved. You don't have to worry about it anymore. Liu Hao threw 2 stacks of US dollars on the table. I'll give you 1 more day off. Have fun for 2 days and then go back to prison on your own. Deadpool happily put away the US dollars, looked around and asked, but where is Natasha Romanoff, the cold and beautiful red-haired beauty from SHILD? It seems that I haven't seen her all day. Liu Hao raised the corner of his mouth and said meaningfully, she is now where she should be. The next day, Liu Hao drove alone to Black Mountain Prison. Having learned from Liu Hao's lesson, the guards still let him pass the levels as usual. Chapter 47 Invitation Letter. Passing through the gate, Liu Hao came to the last cell. In the cell, Black Widow had not fully recovered. But when he saw Liu Hao coming, a trace of fear flashed in his eyes. It seems that you can't bear it sometimes, Natasha Romanoff. Black Widow looked at Liu Hao. Are you here just to laugh at me? I'm not that free. Liu Hao said. I'm here to tell you a bad news. That's your most respected S.H.I.E.L.D. director Nick Fury. Dead. Hearing this, Black Widow widened her eyes. After a moment, she seemed to accept the reality and regained her calm. It was just a mental recovery, and her physical condition did not change at all. You are Superman, right? Liu Hao heard the words, and the corners of his mouth rose. Unexpectedly, Ross Nick's IQ is not even as good as Black Widow. But he did not answer Black Widow. Instead, he opened the cell door and walked to Black Widow's side. 4 hours later, Liu Hao left the prison, and Black Widow's situation was almost the same as last time. Guards. This Big Brother's punishment method is really different. Yes, I wonder if that woman will become addicted to it. Another guard said. As they were talking, a guard got excited and suggested, why don't we punish her for the light of New York? Stop it. An older guard scolded. Even if she is a prisoner, we can't touch the things of the light of New York. The excited guard nodded immediately and didn't mention it again. In fact, he was just talking casually. He knew that no one could touch the things of the light of New York, and the ground had to be cleaned by the cleaning lady in the prison. After dealing with Black Widow, Liu Hao returned to the police station to continue working. Without the troubles of Ross and Nick, Liu Hao's life was much easier. In addition, the crime rate in New York was so low that it could be ignored. So Liu Hao only had to deal with some accounting and other matters every day. Banner got started quickly. After all, with a doctorate in hand, his intelligence must be higher than that of ordinary people. So Liu Hao gave him the task of updating the police station's equipment. Banner was asked to be responsible for the inspection and maintenance of weapons, and he could teach the police how to use them in the spare time. I have never seen this kind of technology before. During the research, Banner was amazed by the new equipment. Banner was originally a doctor, and he was considered half a scientist. His love for technology was as strong as a man's love for women. You can study it for a few more days, and then promote it to the police station after you figure it out. Liu Hao said, I have a lot of weapons like this. These were all obtained from S.H.I.E.L.D. in the past. Because they were too advanced, no one successfully analyzed them. So Liu Hao has been shelving them until now. They were all obtained in the past, and they may have been stored for too long, and they are almost covered with dust. Liu Hao explained to Banner. It just so happens that you are here, and you can learn something, so I will give it to you for research, so that I don't have to find professionals. After all, I can't ask the people from SHILD, right? Nick is gone. SHILD must be in a mess. Not to mention that Nick was like that because of me, and going there again would only bring unnecessary trouble. Banner concentrated on studying these weapons, and the more he studied, the more he admired. It's incredible. It's simply a work of art. Even if it's made by Stark Industries, it can't compare to this exquisiteness. In a few years, Stark Industries' weapons will not be so outstanding. At that time, they will all become Tony's personal combat equipment. Liu Hao thought so in his heart. The following days were calm. Banner completely mastered these weapons and popularized them in the police station. Now almost everyone is equipped with such equipment. Liu Hao stayed at home peacefully these days. After Wanda came back from a business trip, he didn't go to those old friends anymore. He stayed at home with his wife and did housework. He was almost a full-time house husband, while Wanda was always watching movies on the sofa. Wanda is a strong woman, But that doesn't mean she doesn't need the care of others. On the contrary, because of the lack of father's love in her childhood, she longed for father's love and longed to find a reliable man. After all, since Wanda could remember, her father Magneto had not spent much time with her, so it was normal for her to lack fatherly love. Liu Hao attracted Wanda because of this and married her. After marriage, he also played the role of a father. Liu Hao and his wife enjoyed their world of two. Until one day, someone came to visit Liu Hao's house. Liu Hao opened the door and saw that it was Betty. He thought she was coming. He quickly glanced at his wife in the kitchen, and then said, "Not recently, my wife is at home. You have to bear with it for a while." Who knew Betty was not coming at all? She was in tears and stepped forward to hold Liu Hao's hand. Choking with sobs, he said, "Liu Hao, please, let my dad go." Liu Hao frowned, walked out of the door and closed it, and then talked to Betty. "It seems that you know that your dad is in trouble." Betty knelt down directly. "Liu Hao, I beg you, let my dad go. Although he is guilty of heinous crimes, he is still my dad. Just because I played well with you when I was a child and I accompanied you for so long before, let him go." Liu Hao looked at Betty coldly. Finally, he let go of her hand and said, "No." Betty wanted to continue to beg, but saw Liu Hao's cold eyes. "Ross has offended me, and he must pay the price. No one's plea is useless." In the hotel, turning his head slightly, Betty on the pillow has fallen asleep. Liu Hao sighed and thought silently. "I think my Superman bloodline is not afraid of nuclear bombs, but I can't resist the gentle offensive of women in the end. It seems that it is not women's fists that make the Eurasian continent shift by 9 millimeters, but more deadly coquetry and pity," Liu Hao said with emotion. Then, he took out his mobile phone and called Arthur, the director of the police headquarters. "Arthur, about Ross Lauren. I was just about to talk to you about this phone," Chief Arthur said. "We just interrogated Ross's crimes and found that his crimes were enough to be sentenced to death. Didn't he anger you and our police? This time we can just execute him openly. Don't you feel relieved? As long as you give an order, I will help you solve it immediately. Ross Lauren can be sent within 3 days. Arthur was very excited. He thought Liu Hao would be equally excited when he heard the news. Unexpectedly, Liu Hao interrupted him. "No need to execute him." "What? Did I hear it right?" Arthur was confused. Having known Liu Hao for so long, Arthur naturally understood his revengeful character. Revenge is a must, double return. He would never leave anyone alive if he could die, and would never go easy on people who could be disabled, but it was the first time that he said it was unnecessary like today. Leave him a chance to live during the trial, sentence him to life imprisonment, and let him spend the rest of his life in prison, Liu Hao said. Arthur asked with a puzzled look on his face. "But you didn't say that before. What changed your mind? The other party's price was very high? Or did you save face for others?" Arthur was very curious until Liu Hao answered. "It was a sugar-coated bullet." Arthur was slightly stunned, and then smiled after realizing it. "It seems that this is what you Chinese people often say, that heroes are hard to resist beautiful women." Liu Hao smacked his lips, a little embarrassed, and didn't speak. Who would have thought that the proverb he taught Arthur would be used on himself? Arthur felt that this was the Liu Hao in his memory. He laughed enough, and returned to the topic. "In that case, I respect your choice. I will take care of Ross's affairs." After handling the verdict on Ross, Liu Hao ended the call with Arthur. Then he sent a message to Betty, who was still sleeping, telling her father that Ross would only go to jail and would not be in danger of life. "Every time I wake up first, the person next to the pillow is not awake yet, and I can't tell who is who," Liu Hao complained privately. Then Liu Hao put on his clothes and left the hotel, because he spent a night with Betty behind his wife's back last night. So, he must go back to care about Wanda and enhance their relationship. After that, Liu Hao changed into formal clothes and went to the New York Police Department. There was nothing important today. Liu Hao stayed in the office and turned on the news when he was free. Turning on the TV, what came into view was the figure that Liu Hao was most familiar with. Genius, dreamer, patriot from the Stark family, Tony Stark. On TV, Tony's image appeared in the form of a poster, explained by the host in the voiceover. Since childhood, Tony Stark, the son of the legendary weapons inventor Howard Stark, has attracted widespread attention with his extraordinary wisdom. He made circuit boards at the age of 4, made his own engines at the age of 6, and graduated from MIT early at the age of 17, winning the title of the best graduate. After Howard's accidental death, Tony disappeared for a while, and Stark Industries was taken over by Howard's friend, Buddy Stan. Buddy Stan is the villain in Iron Man 1. In Liu Hao's era, this kind of plot is already a cliché in Hollywood movies and superhero comics. The news continued to report Tony's deeds. Until the age of 21, Tony returned to Stark Industries and took over the position of new president. He used smart weapons, advanced robots, and satellite positioning technology to push his father's legacy to the pinnacle of global attention. This is Tony Stark, the controller of the world's top weapons industrial empire, the new president of Stark Industries, and a true hero who defends American freedom with weapons. Why is there such intensive media coverage of Tony suddenly? Liu Hao was a little puzzled. Although Tony is a scientific genius and business tycoon, he has made great achievements at a young age, won numerous awards in various industries, and made the family business profitable at the age of 21. However, in the capitalist society of the United States, such achievements are not uncommon. Recently, due to the many cooperations between Stark Industries and the military specially held a commendation meeting for Tony and Stark Industries. The awards were presented by Colonel James Rhodes, who served as the liaison between Stark Industries and the military, to discuss the wide application of new weapons in the military. I wonder if this kind of cooperation can continue in the military for a long time? Let's wait and see. The news ends here. After reading the second half, Liu Hao suddenly realized that this was a propaganda of Stark Industries. Through negotiations and promotion with the military, attract investment and large-scale orders from other military departments. Liu Hao recalled, put his feet on the table, and thought to himself, should I remind this guy? Although these things have nothing to do with Liu Hao, he is still Tony's cousin after all. While he was struggling, Banner knocked on the door and came in with an invitation. Brother Feng, Stark Industries sent you a letter, inviting you to attend the honor party they held for Tony Stark tonight. This guy actually invited me, which was quite thoughtful. Liu Hao secretly decided. Then I'll give you a little reminder. I know, you go ahead. Liu Hao said to Banner and prepared to go out. Banner reminded at the door. Wait, Brother Feng, are you going to the party like this? Liu Hao did not blame Banner for being too talkative, but simply responded. You must dress formally for the party, but you can dress casually for the casino. Go to the casino? But didn't Mr. Stark invite you to the party? You don't know Tony, his personality? Liu Hao put on his coat while saying, he won't show up at the awards ceremony. Liu Hao went out and drove to the largest casino in the United States. As soon as he entered the casino, he heard a proud voice from afar. Yeah, I won again. Didn't I say it? Ma'am, you are my lucky goddess tonight. Playboy Tony was rolling the dice with two beauties in his arms. Liu Hao walked through the crowd and approached. It seems that you are lucky today, President. Tony thought that the boss was complimenting him, so he instinctively retorted. Luck is part of strength, and only incompetent people will attribute it to chance. However, when he saw that the person coming was Liu Hao, his originally serious expression immediately relaxed and a smile appeared on his face. Liu Hao, why are you here? Look, this is the child of my dear aunt, my dear cousin. Come, let's hug one. Liu Hao knew Tony's style and acted in a high-profile manner. He was used to it and hugged Tony. Then, Tony pushed aside the blonde and red-haired beauties beside him and turned to chat with Liu Hao, definitely while gambling. Have you figured it out? Come to me to discuss business? I've said before that the equipment of the New York Police Department is too backward. Why not trade with Stark Industries and exchange a batch of new police equipment? Stark talked business with Liu Hao while gambling. You are an old friend, giving you a 10% discount. Generous enough, right? I have suitable ones here. Place an order now. 6,000 to 7,000 sets is no problem. The price is rounded off to 800,000 US dollars. Just ask my assistant to swipe the card. I'll ask her to come over now. Liu Hao heard this and responded with a slight smile. Your words almost touched me. Unfortunately, the police department has recently updated its equipment. There is no need to cooperate with Stark Industries for the time being. Tony was stunned. Not doing business? Then why did you come to me? Gambling? No, you don't look like a gambler. Liu Hao got straight to the point. I came to you this time not to discuss business or to reminisce about the past, but I have something to remind you. Liu Hao said. Remind me? Tony showed a hint of confusion, then smiled. Are you trying to tell me not to be too greedy and not to lose myself? If that's the case, brother, I've exceeded the limit to an outrageous degree, both in terms of wealth and self. Liu Hao didn't care about Tony's joke and continued. 3 days later, you will go to the test site under the guidance of the army. You are going to test the newly developed Jericho missile, right? Tony was quick to respond and asked, what are you reminding me of? Tony still asked in a teasing tone. You are not worried that the army will cheat and take away the weapons without paying, right? Liu Hao responded calmly, no, I mean that day, you may face a life-and-death crisis. Tony was stunned for a moment, then smiled. Are you kidding, Liu Hao? Liu Hao took a sip of the whiskey in his hand and said, in short, it's better not to go. Otherwise you may die here. Tony sneered. How is it possible? Is the army here for vacation? They will ensure my safety. Do you know how close my relationship with Colonel James Rhodes is? He can mobilize enough troops to protect me at any time. Tony was full of confidence and said to Liu Hao's warning fell on deaf ears. If you trust the army so much, then even if I didn't say anything, don't blame me for not reminding you when the time comes. Liu Hao finished speaking, stood up and prepared to leave, and before leaving, he did not forget to remind. Also, keep an eye on your partner Badiston. We are all businessmen. You should know the situation. After Liu Hao left, Tony stayed alone for 3 or 4 minutes and then went back to gambling. 3 days later. Military base. As long as you launch one of these things, I can guarantee that the enemy will never dare to come out again. This is Stark Industries' Freedom Series, a brand new product. Tony stood in front of the army and signaled that they could start launching. The missile took off, and Tony announced to everyone, "Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy the Jericho missile." As soon as the voice fell, a missile landed in the valley behind Tony, instantly raising dust all over the sky, with amazing destructive power. Chapter 48 Pixel Fragments. After the experiment, Tony made a video call to Buddy Stan, the former president of Stark Industries. "Hey, Tony, how is the experiment going?" "Everything went well, and I'm about to return," Tony replied. "Okay, I'll organize a party for you tonight to celebrate your success." The two ended the call, and Tony remembered that Liu Hao asked him to keep an eye on Buddy Stan. Tony has always been wary of this guy, but he just thought he didn't have the courage to do big things. Before leaving, James Rhodes, who was the contact person, came over and said to Tony, "Tony, you did a good job today. Go back and rest early. We're leaving too." "Well, don't forget what I said to you before," Tony responded. Rhodes separated from Tony and sent more vehicles to follow him according to Tony's instructions before leaving. I thought to myself, when did Tony become so timid? Getting in the car, Tony felt uneasy for some reason. The surroundings were strangely quiet, like the calm before the storm. The quieter it was, the more frightened he was. Liu Hao's warning came to his mind. Seeing Tony's nervous look, the soldier sitting next to him comforted him. "Mr. Stark, don't be nervous. The army will protect your safety." "That's right. The U.S. military is not a vegetarian, and there can't be any terrorists here." Boom. Before he finished speaking, a missile accurately hit the military jeep in front of Tony. After the explosion, bullets flew across the sky, and the soldiers picked up their guns to fight. However, the attackers had fierce firepower, and the soldiers sent in multiple groups could not resist. Tony huddled in the car, muttering, "Damn it, it's true. Liu Hao is right. I should have listened to Liu Hao. I shouldn't have come here." Fortunately, Tony listened to Liu Hao's advice and arranged someone to protect himself in advance. Therefore, he can still hide in the jeep for the time being. Although he doesn't know how long he can hold on, at least he is still alive. At this moment, Tony is desperate and only hopes to escape alive. Rich kids really cherish their lives. The terrorist leader who attacked Tony noticed the number of bodyguards around Tony. "So what if there are more?" "Tony Stark, will the army do everything they can to protect you?" "No, but I will do everything I can to catch you." "That's the difference." The terrorist leader ordered the people around him, "Find more people. In 5 minutes, I want to see Tony Stark and his bodyguards completely lose their ability to resist." Tony vaguely felt that the number of enemies was increasing and couldn't help cursing, "Damn it." Tony's soldiers fell one by one, from the back row to the front row, and even to the driver in the car. Tony 11 could only flee desperately at this moment. He pushed open the car door, ran out of the car, and hid behind a big rock as a cover. However, immediately afterwards, a Jericho missile from Stark Industries landed in front of him, with a humorous company logo written on it. Damn it! Tony planned to escape, but it was too late. The missile exploded suddenly in front of him. Fragments pierced his chest. No one knew how long it took. Tony slowly opened his eyes in a dark corner, confused and bewildered. There was an inexplicably glowing round object on his chest, like a light bulb wrapped with wires, weird and strange. Panic and helplessness filled Tony, and the scientist next to him came forward to comfort him. "This is an electromagnet device used to prevent shrapnel from touching your vitals. It can save your life." Soon, the terrorist leader and his men pushed open the door and spoke to Tony with body language and foreign accents. The scientist quickly translated. He said, "Welcome, Mr. Stark, the most notorious madman in American history. He brought you here to copy the Jericho missile you showed in the army in this cave. Here are all the materials to make missiles. After the missile is completed, he will ask you to make a list of materials and let you start working immediately. After the completion, he will let you go." After that, the terrorist leader forced a smile and stretched out his hand to Tony. Tony responded with a smile, shook his hand, and then smiled and said, "No, he won't let me go." The scientist smiled and echoed, "That's right, he won't let you go. You may die after finishing it." Looking at the leader's face, Tony's mind flashed 10 unprecedented thoughts. Build missiles for them like a dog. He will make these demons pay. At the same time, in a hotel in New York. Since leaving the casino, Liu Hao has spent 3 mornings with his old friend Michaela. As usual, Michaela was still asleep, but Liu Hao had already woken up. With nothing to do and it was still early, he turned on the TV news. But he found that the news was still about Tony, but this time the report was not glorious. Tony, the current president of Stark Industries, disappeared while testing a missile and his whereabouts are still unknown. Next, we will connect with Colonel James Rhodes, who is in charge of this operation, and the camera will turn to Lisa, the reporter on the scene. Watching the news, Liu Hao had no fluctuations in his heart, but instead blamed, "It's stupid not to listen to advice." Although this is the beginning of Iron Man 1, Tony does not have to go through all this in the cave to become Iron Man. His true metamorphosis, worthy of this name, was at the end of the first Avengers, when he realized that he was a hero after sacrificing his life. The experience in the cave only changed him from a playboy who sold arms to a playboy obsessed with making armor. While thinking, Liu Hao's phone rang. The caller ID showed that it was his adoptive mother Elena. After answering, Elena's anxious voice came. "Phone, have you seen the news? Your cousin Tony has met with misfortune." "I know, I have already warned him." Liu Hao responded calmly. "I warned him that his life would be in danger, but he was conceited and insisted on going. You can't blame anyone else. But now that this has happened, you have to think of a way." The adoptive mother on the other end of the phone was anxious. "After all, he is my brother's child, your cousin. Mom knows you have the ability to save him. Please help him for Mom's sake." Liu Hao gently stroked his forehead, knowing that it was difficult to refuse his adoptive mother's feelings, so he replied, "I know, I will arrange for someone to bring him back. Don't worry too much." After hanging up the phone, Liu Hao couldn't help but laugh at himself. Why do I always fall into the hands of women? Then, Liu Hao called Banner and asked him to bring Deadpool and the little wolf girl Laura to the police station to wait for him. Arriving at the police station, Meng, Deadpool, and Laura explained the mission and the process. Deadpool couldn't help complaining after hearing this. "No way, Liu Hao. You actually accepted this mission to save the big boss? Although the reward must be generous. I thought you would only do things that benefit yourself, but I didn't expect you to accept outsourcing. As expected, money makes the world go round. I, a mercenary, have returned to my original job." Liu Hao gave him a look, and Deadpool immediately shut up. At this time, with the poll, "How can we find Tony Stark?" "Yes, we don't even know where the terrorists who arrested him came from." Deadpool agreed. Tony threw them a file, which contained Stark's former President Batiston, the villain in Iron Man 1. "Investigate him, find out his whereabouts in the past 3 days, and which forces he is traded with." Liu Hao took out a device. After determining which villain it is, use this electromagnetic wave scanner to find the small arc reactor. The reactor releases 3 billion joules of energy per second, which is easy to sense. Find it, and you can find Tony. Because the so-called arc reactor is the mysterious object in Tony's chest. Hearing this, Deadpool said in surprise, "Liu Hao, I misunderstood you. I thought you only knew how to deal with criminals, but I didn't expect you to know these things. Are you also a genius from MIT?" Liu Hao naturally knew these things. After all, Iron Man is the first movie of great significance in the Marvel Universe. When it was released that year, Iron Man's high-tech battlesuit caused a sensation in China. Therefore, Liu Hao knew the various terms in the movie, including the device on Tony's chest. However, he didn't need to explain to Deadpool, and said directly and bluntly, "It doesn't matter whether you understand it or not. The key is whether you two can understand it when you perform the mission." "I understand, just like mining, just take the detection equipment to explore the suburbs, right?" Deadpool responded confidently. Liu Hao thought, that's probably it. So, the two set off. Banner joined with a confused look, and left with a confused look. As a doctor, Banner could understand the electromagnet and arc reactor mentioned by Liu Hao, but he was completely confused about Tony Stark, military cooperation, and Jericho missiles. After all, he was not a mercenary like Deadpool and Little Wolf Girl. Banner is an ordinary person, but he has the ability to transform into the Hulk due to gamma radiation and serum. After Banner left, Liu Hao thought of Tony again. Tony looking for trouble is a set plot in the movie. However, it is precisely because the timeline of the movie Iron Man is set here that the story unfolds. This indirectly shows that once Tony becomes Iron Man, the storylines of other heroes will follow. The story of the Marvel movie universe begins here. If this is true, then New York and even the Earth will be in disaster. Can New York be free of disasters? There is Loki in front, Ultron in the back, and the purple potato spirit is waiting to snap his fingers in a corner of the universe. There is also a love-hate relationship between superheroes in the middle. Although before Avengers Alliance 3, the Civil War was fought back and forth, and no one died. But the heroes are still safe and sound. However, New York under Liu Hao's feet has been almost tormented. This made Liu Hao think. Although it is easy to kill 1 or 2 villains by incarnating as Superman, but they don't appear at once, they come to the Earth to make trouble every once in a while. Then stand there stupidly waiting for me to defeat them one by one, which is a waste of time. Fly directly to Asgard and Titan and break Loki and Thanos' necks? It's not impossible, but I don't know where these 2 guys are in this timeline. And there is no clear route to Asgard and Titan in the movie or comics. If Liu Hao really wants to find it, he may have to search the universe like a headless fly. It's unknown how much time it will take. Liu Hao, who wants to find a quiet day, is a little entangled. Or he can move to another place to save those idiots from coming to his house every day. But New York is so prosperous. I have also established my own world here. It's really a bit reluctant to leave at this time, Liu Hao said silently in his heart. Just as Liu Hao hesitated, he suddenly felt that the surroundings became quiet in an instant. No, not just the office, the entire police station was quiet. Liu Hao narrowed his eyes slightly and felt a strange breath. Liu Hao turned on Superman's perspective eyes and scanned the entire building directly. Liu Hao used his perspective eyes like an X-ray scan to scan the entire New York Police Department, but did not find any suspicious people. But when scanning, he found that the people outside the office were motionless, which felt weird. Time is paused. Liu Hao came to the conclusion and wondered. This timeline has the ability to control time. As soon as Liu Hao finished speaking, a portal quietly opened behind him. Liu Hao turned quickly. Unexpectedly, a man in a yellow robe walked out of the portal. Without saying a word, he hit Liu Hao's chest with a palm. The other party thought that this palm was enough to make Liu Hao's soul fly away. However, the result was nothing happened. Seeing this, Liu Hao clenched his fist and punched the opponent in the abdomen. The wind from his fist whistled, blowing away all the documents on Liu Hao's desk as fast as a missile. Liu Hao swung his fist vigorously, and the moment it touched the opponent, the yellow-robed man exploded into pixel fragments. It was not that his limbs were broken, but that he really turned into pixel-like fragments. Liu Hao knew that this was an illusion and prepared to look for the enemy. Suddenly, a glowing golden whip swung from the side of Liu Hao. The golden whip wrapped around Liu Hao. Then, two geometric patterns with patterns moved towards the middle from above and below Liu Hao. The two patterns carried strong energy like a circular saw. Liu Hao, who was tied up, raised his mouth corners, exerted force with both hands, and all the golden things around him exploded instantly and turned into fragments. At this time, the yellow-robed man reappeared behind Liu Hao and said calmly, "It seems that you are different from the Superman in my impression. You are not afraid of magic." Liu Hao turned around as expected, shrugged and said, "You have read superhero comics beyond my expectation, Master." The yellow-robed man took off his hat, and the man was Sorcerer Supreme Ancient One. Hearing Liu Hao's words, Ancient One frowned slightly. "You know me. This further confirms my guess. You are not from this world, right?" Liu Hao did not hide it and answered, "The United States is an immigrant country. I immigrated from another world. Is it normal?" Ancient One said to Liu Hao with a solemn atmosphere, "I'm not curious about where you come from or how you came. I am more interested in your power and your behavior. Because you are too powerful, you are the biggest variable in the universe." Ancient One still said seriously, "I am an Asgardian on Earth. My duty is to prevent powerful beings like you from disrupting the order of time and space." Hearing this, Liu Hao also replied seriously, "I am not so free to disrupt the order of the universe. I have been staying in New York. Whoever provokes me will have to pay the price. It's that simple." Ancient One smiled slightly and then said calmly, "But just 3 days ago, you did something that almost changed the entire course of history. You tried to stop Tony Stark from going to the experimental base. Do you know what consequences this will bring? If Tony Stark had not been captured, he would not have changed and would not have become a leader. People inspired by him would not have appeared. Such actions are like a snowball, and everything will go unexpectedly." Ancient One continued, "There is also Nick Fury earlier. If you kill him, it will also deeply affect the subsequent timeline. This is not a trivial matter, and it will have a chain reaction of butterfly effects. So you came to the New York Police Department to warn me because of these?" Liu Hao said. Then, Liu Hao suddenly asked back, "You don't want me to interfere with the timeline of this universe? I cannot intervene, but there is a condition. Don't mess with me. Otherwise, no matter how much trouble it causes, I think the person who deserves to die must die." Liu Hao reminded Ancient One. "Ancient One Magician, you have to understand that I respect you because you are the Asgardian of the Earth and the Sorcerer Supreme, not because I am afraid of you. You think I am an uncontrollable factor and want me to stop interfering with the timeline. Okay, but please pay attention to your attitude." Liu Hao clenched his fists. Superman's bioforce field immediately unfolded and spread. "I am not one of those idiots you have seen. You know my experience best. I am not a villain who wants to conquer the universe. I just want to ensure my own peace of mind. If you want to stop me from destroying the timeline, you should discuss it with me, instead of warning me in such a condescending way like now." The pressure released by Liu Hao instantly shocked the Ancient One. At the moment, Ancient One realized how extraordinary Liu Hao's existence was. But this proves that Liu Hao is just a person who repays favors and is not a villain to some extent. The Ancient One came here to test whether Liu Hao is a villain. After getting confirmation, Ancient One still smiled and responded. Chapter 49. It still hurts. "You were right, I was impulsive. I apologize for my behavior just now." Seeing that Ancient One was in a good attitude, Liu Hao also returned to normal. He He sat back in the chair and motioned Ancient One to sit down as well. Ancient One sat down, friendly as usual, she said. I understand what you mean. You are not deliberately destroying the timeline. So forget about the previous things. But I still hope that you will interfere less with the timeline in the future. Ancient One deliberately used the word less, with a very sincere attitude and respect for Liu Hao. Because multi-universe is full of dangers, changing the timeline at will can easily lead to multi-universe disorder. At that time, all kinds of strange existences will come to our universe. This is not what I want to see. I believe you don't want it to be like this, right? After Ancient One finished speaking, Liu Hao thought about it for a while. He definitely understood what Ancient One meant by multi-universe. This concept of parallel universe has long been rampant in American comics. Whether it is DC or Marvel, there are often parallel universe hero slaughter series. Assuming that Liu Hao really changes the timeline at all costs, it may really cause a big event. So Liu Hao replied, Magician's words make sense. I will consider it. Very good. It seems that we had a pleasant exchange. I hope you will remember today's conversation next time you want to change the timeline. After Ancient One finished speaking, he stood up and prepared to leave. If you have time, you are welcome to visit me in Kamartaj, Tibet. After all, you have Chinese blood, and you are destined to be with me. Maybe one day, magic will choose you. As a Chinese, Liu Hao only regarded Ancient One's words as a courtesy of, I will treat you to dinner another day. After speaking, Ancient One opened the portal and left slowly. The moment Ancient One stepped into the portal again, the voice of the New York Police Department sounded again. The ability to pause time, I have to admit, is quite powerful. Liu Hao was quite interested in Ancient One's Eye of Agamotto, that is, time gem. But he was only interested and was not in a hurry to get it. Lu Jing thought about what Ancient One had just said. In the end, Liu Hao felt that it was too troublesome to interfere with these things and was too lazy to care. But he was too lazy to change what he had done. So he waited for news from Deadpool and the Little Wolf Girl. The camera turned to Tony. Just like the movie, Tony apparently agreed to make Jericho missiles for the terrorists. In fact, he used the materials provided by the terrorists to make the key to escape from here. This is the prototype of all Tony's future armors in the Marvel Universe, Mark 1. 11. This is Tony's life and death card, but due to time constraints, there are many defects. The function is imperfect, and the power system can only last about 15 minutes. The main weapons are the flamethrower in the left hand and several missiles in the right hand. The disadvantage is that many key operating belts are exposed, and once shot, the conveyor belt is easy to break. The broken hind legs cannot move, and can only rely on their own strength to move. But it is more than enough to deal with those terrorists. Tony thought so, just as he put on the armor and the scientists were ready to start. Boom. The door that Tony and others locked was blown open. The terrorists swarmed up and surrounded Tony, and even shot and killed the scientists around him. Tony was completely broken, and he was about to escape. Hey Tony, it's a pity that I can't let you enjoy this treasure. A familiar voice sounded at the door. Tony looked up and blurted out curse words. Damn it. Damn bastard. That's right. The person who came was none other than the villain in the movie, Buddy Stan. Oh, tisk tsk. Would our arrogant Tony Stark also have this expression? Buddy Stan approached the motionless Tony with a smug look and insulted him wantonly. No, come to think of it, I did see you like this, yes, I remember. It was when your father died. Ha ha. You cried louder and more miserably than now, like a stray dog with no one to love you. Tony clenched his fists and tried his best to activate the flamethrower on his armor to burn this guy to charcoal. However, the armor was not fully activated, so he could only wait to die. Do you think you are superior to others just because you are a genius scientist and entrepreneur sought after by the media? No, Tony. You have always been that stray dog, in the past and in the future. Buddy Stan cursed, pointing at Tony's face. Do you think I don't know that you made more than just the Jericho missile? You wanted to deceive those country bumpkins, but you didn't expect me to show up, did you? Tony was filled with rage, gnashing his teeth, and just wanted to tear this guy's mouth apart. If he had listened to Liu Hao's warning, he should have sent someone to kill Batistan immediately. At this moment, he regretted not believing everything Liu Hao said. Batistan walked to Tony's desk and surrounded the Mark armor drawings designed by Tony. He looked at them and praised them. It's so clever, Tony. You are like a master tailor in the arms industry. Unfortunately, this will be your last work. After saying that, Batistan made a throat-cutting gesture towards the terrorist. The terrorist immediately pulled out a gun and pointed it at Tony's head, and Tony gritted his teeth and closed his eyes. At this critical moment, a painful howl came from outside the cave. The people in the cave were stunned, and then there was another howl. The sound continued, accompanied by the sound of gunfire and swords, getting closer and closer. Batistan and the terrorist looked out. In the light, they saw a fast shadow. It didn't look like a human, but more like a beast. Wherever it went, blood flowed like a river, and wailing was everywhere, as if, how could there be a beast here? Batistan didn't care about anything and ordered in a foreign language. Why are you standing there? Come on, push on. He knew that no matter whether the guy at the entrance of the cave was a beast or a human, he would threaten his life. The terrorists opened fire and shot at the intruders, but the opponent was like a ghost, and they couldn't hit him no matter how hard they shot. The agile little wolf girl cleverly dodged the bullets and used the retractable adamantium steel claws to kill the enemies one by one. She kept killing until the little wolf girl covered in blood came to Batistan. Batistan had never seen such a fierce character before, and he sat on the ground, muttering to himself, Wait a minute. You don't have to kill me. Who hired you? I have money. I can give it. Before Batistan finished speaking, the little wolf girl cut her throat with a sword, and blood gushed out like a spring. After killing Batistan, the little wolf girl turned her head slightly to look at Tony, who was unable to move. Tony's face was full of horror. He didn't know whether she was an enemy or a friend. He looked at the little wolf girl as if he had seen a ghost. The little wolf girl walked calmly in front of Tony, stared at him intently, and whispered, Well, you are Tony Stark. At this time, Tony realized that this female star was here to save him. I was sent by your cousin. The little wolf girl explained. Tony was surprised and thought that Liu Hao actually had such a ruthless character as his subordinate. Let's go. Reinforcements will be here soon, and we have transportation. The little wolf girl was about to cut the armor to help Tony down, but she heard Tony say, No need to take it off, help me start it. The computer is there. I don't know. The little wolf girl replied expressionlessly. Tony said eagerly, It's very simple, I can teach you, I must start it. Worried that the little wolf girl would not agree, he added, I don't want to be a coward anymore, I want to kill those bastards. After hearing this, the little wolf girl nodded after a moment. A few minutes later, Tony's Mark I armor was successfully started. Tony walked out the door wearing heavy armor. At this time, reinforcements arrived, and Tony desperately used the flamethrower and bomb under the armor to kill. Go to hell. You idiots. Tony vented his anger crazily and killed countless terrorists crazily. However, he ignored the defense. In the defense of Mark, I was really weak. Facing the firepower of more than 5 terrorists, Tony was suppressed and unable to move. At the entrance of the cave, Tony groped for the flight system of the armor and was ready to leave, but hesitated because he thought of the little wolf girl. The armor on the chest is about to be broken. Concentrate firepower. Kill him. The terrorist shouted in a foreign language. Before he finished speaking, a grenade blew the terrorist who was speaking to pieces. On the hillside not far away, Deadpool, holding a rocket launcher, shouted happily, Wow. Hit the bullseye. 5 with 1 shot. The best marksman is me, Uncle Deadpool. On the wolf girl's side, the terrorists felt the enemy's attack and looked for targets everywhere. However, they didn't know that the shift of the target at this moment would directly become their death knell. The wolf girl moved quickly and killed the enemy continuously with the adamantium blade. She seemed to be a ghost, showing the bravery of Wolverine when he first joined the war. However, the wolf girl's fighting style was more radical than Wolverine at that time. Tony, who had lost his fighting power, half knelt to rest and let his armor cool down. However, in a short time, this place was baptized by blood again. After solving everything, the wolf girl came to Tony again and asked, Can we get on the helicopter now, Iron Boy? Tony took off his armor and threw it into the fire to destroy it. Then, he boarded the plane with the little wolf girl and Deadpool. Definitely on the plane, he did not forget to tease Deadpool. You are wrapped up tightly like this, aren't you hot? Deadpool asked back. I chopped from the east to the west without blinking. And you asked me if I was hot? Yes, I am very curious. Isn't it hot to be wrapped like this in the desert? Tony still asked. You are really touching. Deadpool's attitude changed immediately. It is really hot, but there is no way. I have to wear this clothes, so that everyone knows I am Deadpool. After saying that, Deadpool took off his mask and revealed his scarred face. Tony couldn't help retching when he saw this scene, and hurriedly said, Sorry, I was wrong. For my eyes, you should be patient for a while. While the two chatted, the little wolf girl threw a serious question. So where are you going now? Home or to the safer police station? To the company. Tony said seriously, I will hold a press conference in the name of Stark Industries. The two sent Tony back, and he asked his friend Rod to announce his return as promised, and held a press conference. After Deadpool and the little wolf girl completed the task, they returned to the New York Police Department to report to Liu Hao. We have sent that Tony Stark back safely, but I don't know what he wants to do by holding a press conference. Deadpool said, Is it like those idiots who don't ask for help when they encounter problems, but post on Instagram first? Or he stole the terrorist weapons technology and planned to go back to develop it himself and make a lot of money. Now he is preparing to attract investment. Wow, this Tony Stark is really obsessed with money. Liu Hao thought to himself that Tony's press conference would definitely not be like what Deadpool said. According to the plot of the movie, Tony went back this time to announce the closure of the weapons department, indicating that Stark Industries would never sell weapons again. This is a great time to buy Stark Industries stocks. Liu Hao did not hide anything and said to Deadpool and the little wolf girl, Stark Industries stocks are about to rise sharply, trust me and buy them. He also told Banner to spread the news to the entire police station. The police were a little tempted when they heard that it was Liu Hao's suggestion, but some people who specialize in stocks thought that buying Stark Group stocks at the moment might not pay off, and blindly buying was not wise. However, most police officers bought stocks with their mobile phones out of trust in Liu Hao. Deadpool, let alone, directly bought all his assets, accurate to every penny. He also said bluntly, Liu Hao is my god. Don't talk about stocks. If you tell me now that eating shit can make my brother grow longer, I will eat it too. Don't worry, I won't say such disgusting words. After teasing Deadpool for a while, Liu Hao found that the little wolf girl was indifferent. So he asked, Laura, why don't you buy it? Don't believe me? It's not that I don't believe it. The little wolf girl shook her head and replied, I just think it's unnecessary to buy stocks. Money is not important to me at all, as long as it can maintain daily living expenses. The little wolf girl said, and glanced at Liu Hao. I have you, even if I get out of prison. I can still have food and clothing with you. Liu Hao heard this. The corners of his mouth rose, and replied, Definitely 043, you will have food to eat and sleep for a day if you stay with me for a day, no matter how long it takes. Wow, so touching, brother Liu Hao. Deadpool, who was not named, suddenly twisted his butt. I didn't expect that I, Deadpool, could find a man worth relying on in my life after my parents died. From now on, my body and soul are all yours. Mumu mumu. After hearing this, Liu Hao held his forehead slightly and really wanted Deadpool to go eat shit. But thinking that saying so would damage his image, he perfunctorily said a few words to Deadpool. Then, Liu Hao threw the money on the table and asked the little wolf girl and Deadpool to enjoy their vacation. This time the money will be more than last time, as a reward for your good performance recently. Deadpool took the money with a smile. He had called his friends in advance, but he had just invested all his wealth in the shares of Stark Group. Now he had no money and was waiting for Liu Hao to pay him. The little wolf girl accepted it without hesitation and thought about where to go for a drink. This was her only hobby. Drinking can soothe the nerves and relieve the pain when she stretched out her steel claws. This is why Wolverine Logan likes to drink. The little wolf girl is similar to Wolverine. Although her adamantium steel claws have been used many times, they still hurt every time they are used. As long as no one disturbs her drinking and makes her unhappy, the little wolf girl will not cause trouble. Hey, Fong, we are leaving. Love you. Deadpool said goodbye with a playful smile. The little wolf girl also said goodbye. I'm leaving first. After the two left, Liu Hao leaned lazily on the office chair and stared at the news on TV. The news said that Tony Stark announced that Stark Industries will close the weapons production department, which will rewrite the future of the company and affect the world pattern. There are also some about Tony's partner's mysterious disappearance is a trivial matter, not worth mentioning. Liu Hao has not been home for the past few days. He thought Wanda must be lonely. Why not go back and be intimate with his wife? With this feeling, seeing that there was nothing important at the police station, Liu Hao drove back home. As soon as he arrived at the door, he heard a conversation. One voice was Wanda, the 10th is a woman. Why is there a strange woman at home? Wanda usually doesn't bring friends home. Could it be that Betty woman, who came straight to the house to thank him for not killing her father Ross? Liu Hao made a bold guess in his heart, and he was relieved until he scanned the house with Superman's perspective eyes. He walked over and opened the door. As he observed, there were indeed two women sitting on the sofa. One was Wanda in home clothes, and the other was a mature woman with gorgeous clothes and noble temperament. She was Liu Hao's adoptive mother, Tony's father Howard Stark's sister, Elena Stark. Wanda saw Liu Hao and smiled warmly. Are you back? My mother and I were just talking about your work. Liu Hao walked over and kissed her adoptive mother on the cheek. Mom, how come you have time to come to New York today? Elena, who still had her charm, answered with a magnetic voice. I am definitely worried that you are working too hard, so I came to see you. Wanda didn't want to interrupt their chat, so she went to make tea. After making tea, she went to prepare dinner, so that they could have a chance to reminisce about the past. Chapter 50 The Judge. Elena took a sip of tea, and then asked Liu Hao with concern. Is the work of the police station busy recently? Not too busy, most of the time is quite free. Liu Hao replied. I just occasionally encounter a gang that makes trouble, and it takes some time to deal with it. Seeing that you are not so busy, Mom is relieved. Elena said. After dinner, Liu Hao took Elena for a walk in the backyard. As they walked, Liu Hao said, Mom, we can talk about business. I know you. You won't run so far to reminisce about the past. Just tell me what you have to say. Seeing this, Elena said directly, I came to you. In fact, it is about Tony. Hearing that the answer was almost the same as what she expected, Liu Hao responded. I have sent someone to rescue him. Mom, didn't you watch the news? Stark Industries president closed the report of the weapons department after returning. Tony came back safely this time, but I felt very uncomfortable when I saw him haggard and weak in the news. Elena said earnestly, "My parents passed away early, and my brother and sister-in-law also passed away one after another. Now I only have you and him as my relatives." Elena stepped forward and held Liu Hao's hand, saying seriously, "So I hope you can take better care of Tony's safety in the future. I have helped him, but he has to learn to be smart." Liu Hao shrugged and suggested, "If you're worried about accidents, let him go out with more bodyguards. But there are some things that bodyguards can't solve, just like what Tony encountered this time, which can't be solved by more people." Elena advised earnestly. I reminded him before that he didn't believe me. What can I do? Liu Hao spread his hands, looking helpless. Elena pulled Liu Hao's ears like a child. "Are you sure that's the attitude of seriously solving the problem? You know your cousin? He is very conceited, and he probably won't believe you if you talk to him like this." Elena continued. "Besides, you already knew all the circumstances at the time, and you could directly arrest those terrorists. But you didn't do that. Actually, it's because you don't pay enough attention to your cousin, right?" Elena grabbed Liu Hao's ear. Although it didn't hurt, he still pretended to be in pain and begged for mercy. Stop. I'm wrong, Mom. Mom has found that you have extraordinary qualities since you were a child. You even predicted the financial crisis in 2008 and told us in advance, so I know you have the ability to help Tony." Elena let go of Liu Hao's ear and snorted proudly. "I don't intend to ask about the source of these abilities. I just hope you can use these abilities to help Tony and help our common relatives. Don't you want to do this?" Elena is right. Liu Hao really didn't want to help Tony. First, it was troublesome, and second, Tony was too arrogant, and Liu Hao wanted to dampen his spirit. Elena rubbed Liu Hao's temple and said, "You don't know how to cherish family affection now. When I was young, I only wanted to make money. When I made enough, I looked back and saw that my relatives left one after another. Now I only have you and Tony as my relatives. I really don't want any of you to get into trouble." Okay. Liu Hao looked at Elena and smiled warmly. "I know. I will help Tony as much as I did to you in the future. I promise that nothing will happen that can threaten Tony's life in the future, and I will not make you worry anymore." Elena turned her head and smiled kindly. "Well, Mom knows that you are a person who keeps your word. I feel relieved that you can make such a promise." Liu Hao hugged his adoptive mother Elena, and then accompanied her to play in New York. The next day, Elena mentioned that she still had a lot of work to do in Hongshitsi Club. Before leaving, she did not forget to remind Liu Hao to remember the promise last night and protect Tony well. After Liu Hao agreed, Elena left with peace of mind. After Elena left, Liu Hao smiled slightly, lit a cigarette, and said to himself, "Tony, you are so lucky. If I didn't have a relative like me, you would probably have been buried in the hands of that purple monster. But who made my mother your aunt? Then I will recognize you as my cousin." After saying that, Liu Hao took out his cell phone and called Tony. At this time, Tony usually did not answer the phone in person. All calls were answered by his assistant Pepper Potts, no matter who it was, even his father's sister, and Liu Hao was no exception. But since the cave incident, the situation has changed. Tony ordered JRVIS to mark Liu Hao's phone for special treatment. Whenever Liu Hao called, JRVIS would automatically access any communication device Tony was using. Therefore, Tony happily answered the phone and said to Liu Hao gratefully, "Phone, thank you for reminding me before I left, and thank you for sending someone to rescue me. I really don't know how to repay you. Let's talk about it later. Are you free now?" Liu Hao asked. Tony on the other end of the phone replied excitedly, "Definitely free. You can come and see my new invention." So Liu Hao drove to Tony's private villa and took a look at his new invention. After arriving at Tony's house, Liu Hao stood on the scanner at the door. After the scan was completed, JRVIS's voice sounded, "New York Police Department, Mr. Liu Hao, you are allowed to enter. My boss has been waiting in the basement for a long time." Liu Hao entered the villa and found the entrance to the underground studio, according to JRVIS's guidance. Entering the studio, Tony was seen testing the classic red and yellow Mark III armor. Seeing Liu Hao coming, Tony began to introduce, "This is an upgraded version of the armor I developed in the cave. Before this, there was a silver-white set, which was Mark II, but it can only fly, not cold-resistant, and will freeze if it doesn't fly high, so it's not very useful. And this set of armor not only reduces weight and no longer freezes, but also strengthens some weapons, such as anti-tank missiles on the arms and shotguns on the shoulders. When I was in the cave, your two men had an impact on me. Especially that girl, the steel claws in her hands that cut iron like mud fascinated me. So I plan to use the world's hardest metal vibranium to cover the entire set of armor. This Mark III, I think it is the most perfect armor so far. Without the most perfect, you can do better," Liu Hao said casually. Although the idea of adding vibranium is quite advanced and expensive, it is not a problem for a rich kid like Tony. "I will definitely do better in the future, yes? You are right." Ha ha ha, Liu Hao. I find that we are getting more and more in sync, Tony said, handing Liu Hao a glass of wine. In fact, it was not a match, but Tony just liked to hear others praise. But Liu Hao did not expose it, but politely took Tony's tequila and took a sip. Look at this armor. Both the function and the appearance are impeccable. Tony proudly praised the Mark series armor he developed. Tony is now full of confidence, and it is difficult to calm down his excitement without showing off. So he said to Liu Hao, if you want, I can customize a set for you. Just tell me what you want to add. I can do it. I don't need it. I don't like to wrap myself in iron. Liu Hao simply rejected Tony's kindness. What's wrong with iron? Weapons can protect the body. After all, we are all flesh and blood. Hearing this, Liu Hao's mouth flashed a barely noticeable smile. Flesh and blood, that is for ordinary people. Liu Hao really doesn't need these high-tech, not to mention the armor with vibranium, which is not as hard as his own skin. If you like it, stay. We Chinese have an old saying that a gentleman does not take away what others like, and it is more valuable to you. Liu Hao responded. But if you continue to wear this thing in many years, you will have to pay the price of your life for it. Tony was confused after hearing this, because he could tell that Liu Hao was not joking. So he asked, what do you mean by this? Tony became curious about his future, and Liu Hao did not intend to hide it. He came here for this. So, Liu Hao leaned on the mechanical table and slowly told Tony all the plots involving him in Iron Man 1, 2, 3, and Avengers. After that, you will rob the rich and help the poor, name yourself Iron Man, and gradually grow into a superhero. Iron Man? What a bad name. Why would I choose this? Tony hurriedly expressed his disgust for the name. Liu Hao recalled the plot of Iron Man and said, in fact, this is the name given by the reporter. When you were on the news, the reporter casually gave the person in the armor the nickname Iron Man. Then you admitted at the press conference that the person was you, and naturally accepted the title. This is too casual, Tony complained in his mind. Tony has always believed that a superhero should have a loud and meaningful name, like Batman. However, just thinking about becoming a superhero makes people excited. As for the name, it seems less important. Anyway, when you were holding a press conference a few days ago, your secretary Pepper met a man named Nick Fury. Liu Hao told Tony the plot of the movie in detail. He said he was from the Special Department of the Homeland Security Administration. You will know that the real name of that agency is S.H.I.E.L.D. When Tony heard this, a flash of excitement flashed in his eyes, and he immediately ordered JRVIS to check the visit records of this person. As expected, as Liu Hao said, this person Nick Fury did leave contact information and messages here with Tony. They are looking for you because S.H.I.E.L.D. is secretly forming a team of super abilities, and you were selected. Liu Hao continued, later, you will meet a black boss without hair. Oh no, he has already declined. When Liu Hao said this, he suddenly changed his words, making Tony on the side even more confused. In short, S.H.I.E.L.D. will gather special humans like you and form a team called Avengers. Liu Hao concluded, Avengers, this name is quite impressive. Tony commented in his heart, you will become a superhero team, fighting against supervillains who attempt to rule the earth and destroy mankind. Liu Hao outlined, there will be conflicts among you, but you can always drive them away before the villains destroy the world. One of the villains will become your friend later, maybe because his brother is also one of you. Liu Hao added, wait, you mean, I will become a superhero in the future? Curious baby Tony began to ask questions. We'll also form Avengers with other superheroes, and then go together to eliminate villains and prevent them from destroying the world? Yes. Liu Hao nodded to confirm. Tony scratched his head and said directly, Liu Hao, it's not that I don't believe you, but this story is too bizarre. This is not the plot of Superman comics, it's not the Justice League against Darkseid or destroying that kind of monster. Liu Hao sweated slightly. Superman is standing in front of you now. What is there to doubt? However, Liu Hao does not want Tony to know the truth. He shrugged, saying that it is up to you to believe it or not, and then said, it's up to you to believe it or not. Anyway, the Earth will usher in one alien villain after another in the future, and the world will be messed up. Aliens? When it comes to this, Tony, as a scientist, is a little interested. So, there are really aliens in the universe, and they will come to the Earth soon? That's right. Seeing that Tony believed it a little, Liu Hao responded, Avengers will fight more than alien villains, and you will eventually die at the hands of a purple devil. Purple devil? What is that? Tony asked. Thanos from Titan. Liu Hao explained, you only need to know that he is very strong. After collecting the infinite gems on the Earth, half of the population disappeared. After that, you went through a lot of trouble to find the other half and started a life and death battle with him. In the end, you will also die at his hands. Liu Hao said slowly, definitely, your death is worthwhile, and the whole world will mourn your sacrifice. Liu Hao continued, because you are the most influential superhero, almost like Jesus. After Liu Hao finished speaking, Tony still found it unbelievable, but he vaguely felt that this might become a reality. I will become Jesus among superheroes? Tony muttered to himself, This is really so cool. Tony cheered. I knew it. I knew I would make a difference in the future. This achievement is even greater than my father's. I have to call Fury back immediately and tell him that their Jesus is ready. Liu Hao shrugged when he heard this. He had already reminded Tony, and how to act afterwards had nothing to do with him. Liu Hao would not directly interfere with Tony's decision, but would only give him another choice. Since this is a multiple-choice question, which answer Tony chooses has little to do with Liu Hao himself. After speaking, Liu Hao drank the tequila in the glass and prepared to leave. You know your fate, and it's up to you to do what you do next. I'll go first. Just as he was about to leave Tony's villa, Tony called him. At the moment, Tony stopped laughing, walked to Liu Hao, and asked seriously, Mano, you said a lot of incredible things, but I am still confused about one thing. What is your real identity? I am the son of your Aunt Elena Stark, that's it. Liu Hao replied lightly. Rejected, Tony pouted and asked again. You don't want to tell me your identity, but you can always tell me how you know these things? Satisfy my curiosity, right? It doesn't matter, you just need to know that I am your cousin and I stand by you. Curiosity kills the cat, and asking too much is not good for you. After that, Liu Hao walked out of the villa without looking back, got in his car, and left. Tony stood there until Liu Hao's car went away, and then he whispered to the air, JRVIS, what's the result? After asking, Tony's headset immediately heard JRVIS's answer. Comparison is complete, sir. The comparison results show that Liu Hao has a 97% chance of being Superman. Hearing JRVIS's words, Tony's eyes flickered and he drank the tequila in his hand. Liu Hao returned to his territory, but did not go home. He took out his mobile phone, swiped the address book, and the names of 4 beauties flowed through his fingertips. At night, Liu Hao was struggling with which concubine to spend the night with. At this time, the phone rang, and the caller ID was Judge, one of the 4 people around him. Liu Hao answered the phone, and before he could speak, a cold and seductive voice came from the other end of the phone. I miss you. Come over. I'm ready. Liu Hao smiled. Now he didn't have to bother to choose. This girl actually knew how to prepare in advance. It seems that this Judge looks cold on the outside, but is actually full of contrasts on the inside. Liu Hao gently turned the steering wheel and drove straight to the Judge's residence. Afterwards, Liu Hao lit a cigarette and looked at the lazy Judge like a kitten. He teased, Why, are you attracted to me? Yes, I like it very much. The tattooed female Judge was expressionless and spoke frankly.